He killed a giant rabbit with just a single shot. Everyone thought he was high level, like level 100. The problem is he's level 6. To kill a rabbit like that in one hit as a warrior, you'd need at least level 90. If he were an assassin, around 70 would do it, with a crit and some busted buffs, of course. But a level 6 did it in one hit. That's not talent anymore. That's straight up disrespect to the game system. The only girls who saw that wanted him in their guild at any cost. This girl is rank 4 in the world and the leader of the rank 9 guild. And after seeing that whole scene, she's completely stunned by him. She even wants to recruit him into the guild. But what no one knows is that up until now, this weapon was complete trash. It took about 1 minute just to load. He didn't even shoot with it. He used it like a club to beat up lousy rabbits. Soon he unlocks the melee sniper class. But do you know why he's so good at shooting? He used to be the best sniper in the Army's Special Forces. The kind of guy who lands shots even while playing with lag. It had been years since he missed a single shot. But everything changed when a box of explosives decided to play Russian roulette with his legs. So he never walked again. However, his mom and his best friend bought him a virtual reality game, which means now he could walk again. When he entered the game the same way he came into the world, he met an NPC responsible for that entire world. After being mocked for having a small banana, he needs to choose a name and what appearance he wants. In the end, he decides to keep his real name and appearance. Even the NPC finds it weird that a human wouldn't want to change anything, but just being able to walk again already makes him happy. So it's done, and he's sent into the game. A bright light flashes and he appears on solid ground. Time to test things out, starting with his legs. He throws a high kick and starts running like crazy. Suddenly a man approaches him, saying he's the guy who helps adventurers get used to the Midlands. A walking tutorial and kinda suspicious. So yeah, he's an NPC too. He starts explaining stamina, and right after that asks if the protagonist sees that girl over there, and the NPC's order is for him to go over there and feel her melons. Nice. The second tutorial is how to go to jail. Of course, the MC starts beating him up, saying that's a crime. When he gets back up, the guy says that if he had done it, he would have been kicked out of the city, and that's what he wanted to teach. Trauma-based learning. But what would have happened if he had actually done what the guy said? The guy just says he learns fast and tells him to go to the next training field while running off. The protagonist is testing his legs, running around the city like a maniac. He runs so much he even unlocks a pro runner skill, so now it'll take longer for him to get exhausted. He goes to a training field and grabs a sword to do a quick practice session. An instructor is yelling that in Middle-earth, as long as you still want to live, the god of combat will clear the path. When the protagonist swings for the first time, he realizes his body moved on its own, so he gets that this is combat assist. Thinking that's kinda weird, he decides to swing using his own skill instead. What he didn't expect was to completely destroy the straw dummy in one hit. Everyone's staring, shocked that he can do that at level 1, and the kid ends up gaining another talent. Out of nowhere, the scene cuts back to the redhead from before. She says she's happy to see him again, but the protagonist's like, it's only been a day. A bunch of different weapons appear around him, and it's time to pick a class. He spots a staff that looks pretty interesting and walks over, but before he grabs it, he sees a rifle that instantly grabs his attention. But the one holding it is that demon girl from earlier. He recognizes it. It looks like an M1 Garand, just less advanced. Then she corrects herself. It's an old musket, like from around 1700. All hyped up, he asks to try it out. She hands him gunpowder and ammo. Reloading is super realistic. Powder, ball, everything by hand takes forever. He complains it's heavy and slow, but anyone standing in front of it is gonna eat lead. He fires. The shot curves and the blast throws smoke everywhere. He misses from point-blank range. She asks if he didn't read the description. Muskets have low accuracy. Still, he tries again. He reloads for about a minute, whining about how long it takes and doubting anyone would actually use that thing. She thinks he's doing pretty well for a beginner. He asks about other long-range weapons. She shows him bows, all of them better. Lee-ha complains the options suck. One mistake and you're dead. She explains the weight is there to balance the combat. He asks about turning off the assist system. She just repeats the standard NPC lines. He gets it. The system can't encourage that. He has to figure it out on his own. He decides to test it without assist, more accuracy and range, taking advantage of the high damage. He tries to log out to calibrate his aim, but the system blocks it. You can't leave during class selection. He demands to exit. The NPC says only after you pick a class. He realizes they did that to stop players from looking up the best class. No choice, he decides. He gives up on the musket and goes to grab the magic staff. The moment he touches it, he gets launched into the sky and starts screaming. He wakes up in the real world with his mom calling him. She takes off the headset and asks if he's feeling sick. He says he's fine. She says she turned the game off because she thought he was in pain and wanted to wake him up. Lee-ha says he's fine and asks that next time she use the headset's call button to wake him up. She lets him rest. He remembers his cousin saying he could make money in the game with a good class. Then it hits him. The NPC only lets you log out after choosing a class, but he got forced out. So what happened to his class? He looks it up and finds someone who had the same thing happen. They got a random class. And deleting your character would take 3 to 6 months before you could make a new one. He tries to calm down, telling himself he grabbed the staff before the teleport, so he must be a mage. He logs back in. Class Musketeer. So yeah, he's stuck with that awful weapon. Better than waiting months, so he accepts it and gets new skills. One of them is Bayonet Charge, which he thinks is trash and burns all his mana in one hit. Lying there complaining, he figures at least he can use the bayonet if he misses. An adventurer comes up, another guide NPC, and gives him a quest: hunt rabbits. No choice. He heads out to the field. He watches other players hunting white rabbits. He spots one and lines up his first shot. Breathe, aim, fire. The rabbit ricochets. The smoke blocks his view, but there's no way he missed, right? The rabbit stares at him, pissed he missed badly. He tries to reload while the thing charges him. Too late. Before he can even pour the powder in, he gets kicked. No time to reload, and he could actually die, so he does what he knows: run. After he gets some distance, he thinks about shooting again, looks back. The rabbit is right on him, running insanely fast. It catches up and lands another kick, hitting like a gunshot. Other players comment that if you're getting beat up by rabbits, you should just uninstall. He's already lost half his HP trying to respond. Exhausted, he drops the rifle and yells right in the rabbit's face, then uses the gun like a club and smacks it, sending it flying. The gun isn't only for shooting. Almost passing out, he props himself up with the musket and charges the others. He takes a bunch of kicks but keeps fighting, swinging instead of shooting. The other players are confused, a long-range class fighting in melee. Even so, he finally kills the rabbit, barely. Still in disbelief that he missed that point-blank shot. He knows if killing a rabbit was that hard, monsters with more HP are going to be worse. Another adventurer kills rabbits easily with a sword. Lee Ha feels like the system is straight up screwing his class. He decides he's not losing to this dumb system, and starts testing the realism. He goes home and researches weapons, trajectory, range. He realizes that with assist on, he only gets one shot per minute. He decides using the musket like a club is his best option, until he builds proficiency. Then his mom interrupts. She asks if he's been less sad since the game, and says she should have gotten it for him sooner. He thanks her, tells her to go to sleep, and promises he won't be long. He swears he's going to make money in the game, he can't work outside, and maybe even pay for surgery so he can walk again. Back in the game, adventurers get startled by a gunshot and ask if there are guns in there. They see Lee Ha reloading so slowly it looks like magic. He's proud of the improvement, but they laugh at him. Slow class, he should quit. They say he doesn't even hunt, he just shoots tree stumps. He ignores them and focuses on accuracy. He counts his ammo and goes back to the rabbits. Hidden in a bush, he watches his target. He calculates distance, wind, waits. He fires. The bullet only hits its paw. The rabbit just gets even angrier. Then it turns into a straight-up fistfight. Lee Ha uses the musket like a club. Pissed he can't land a shot. After all the chaos, he finally kills another rabbit. He gets achievements and his stats go up. Levels up and ends up on some low-tier hero ranking. But the musket breaks. It was basically disposable. He gets even more annoyed, realizes the handle wouldn't survive many more hits anyway, while other players watch without understanding what's going on. He beats another rabbit and yells that smacking things is easier than shooting. He levels up and gets praised. His reputation for taking down monsters by pistol whipping them starts spreading. He finishes the mission and gets a backpack. When the NPC offers to repeat it, he instantly refuses. He's had enough rabbits. He counts his money. Still nowhere near the surgery, but it's a start. Walking through town, he meets Madame Lu, a restaurant owner who offers 7 copper for each rabbit meat. She says she needs a lot of meat for the restaurant and asks if he wants to help. Lee Hax gets a new quest: hunt a black-furred rabbit. He notices the number 1. It's the start of a chain. Madame Lu explains it's rare and gives him a rabbit skin pouch to lure it in. If he brings the wrong meat, she'll come at him with a knife. Before heading out, he buys ammo. The seller charges a lot for gunpowder. There are barely any musketeers in town. The class already sucks, and it's still more expensive. The guy suggests unstable powder, but Lee Ha's afraid he'll never make a profit, and beating rabbits up ruins the meat. He pays anyway. He tries to pick up a quest, but the shopkeeper refuses. Nothing for someone who cries over bullets. He leaves complaining he should have just become a mage. Then he realizes quests have prerequisites. The cook only offered 1 after seeing the rabbit meat he'd hunted. Now he has to figure out each NPC's requirements. His stomach growls. There's a hunger system. Below 30% you get penalties. He goes to the tavern to test the food. He asks for bread, but the shop is closing. The game follows real hours. Shop shut after sunset. He runs around to the last place is still open. Everything's expensive. The owner explains. Rabbits are eating all the wheat. He senses a possible quest and tries to bargain. He hunted rabbits for the vice captain. So can he get bread if he solves the problem? She says he's like the 20th adventurer to try that line. They reproduce way too fast, but she changes her tune when he mentions Madame Rue's black rabbit. She asks if it's Angus stronger than the normal ones, and doubts him. Someone dealing with that wouldn't be broke enough to be begging for bread. Lee Ha shows the stinky pouch Rue gave him. She believes him and asks a favor. Gather herbs in the rabbit's territory. It's basically a life or death mission, all for bread and a few coins. She says Angus probably makes the other rabbits more aggressive. He's called Angus the Black. His fur turns black when he gets mad. Lee Ha says he can do the quest, but he's starving and might pass out. A loaf of bread would help. Annie asks if he's just going to eat and disappear. He promises he'll follow through. She hands over the bread but makes it harder. Now there's a time limit. If he fails, he loses friendship with her and the castle NPCs. He agrees and heads out. The negotiation even gives him a new skill: haggling. He ignores it. He has no idea how he's supposed to finish in under 12 hours. A group is recruiting players to hunt black rabbits. He asks to join and, embarrassed to say musketeer, he says long-range shooter. They almost reject him because his gear is trash, but since it's a weak boss, they let him in. Someone else disagrees. If they die, they can't redo the mission. The leader tells Lee Hakim to get lost. At least he finds out it's not the same quest. Alone, he counts his ammo and gets ready. He goes to other shops and convinces NPCs to accept other rabbit parts too. Stacking multiple quests together, his haggling level goes up. With 12 hours left, he spends 4 training. After that, exhausted, he reaches level 5. The musket handle is worn down from being used as a club. It could break. With his bag full of items, he hears a scream. He watches from a distance. It's that earlier group in trouble. The archer is already dead, and everyone's wondering if this was really a beginner mission. Mages attack, the cleric heals, the warrior tries to tank. They're losing HP fast. They're fighting a giant black rabbit. Not even a fire arrow does much damage. Lee Ha's jealous. Mages cast spells in seconds while it takes him forever just to shoot. The tank goes down, the group runs. Under the moon, the monster looks massive. It really is Angus the Black. While he's thinking of a strategy, he sees the players running and yelling at each other. Then he realizes it's not just one, there are 2 giant rabbits. He panics. After level 5, dying makes you lose a whole level. And one hit from something like that would wipe him out, especially when even the small rabbits were already a pain. Since he has 5 quests involving these things, he decides to try anyway. If he fails, he loses friendship with basically the whole town. Get up and remember, a musket exists to drop someone with a single shot. As a trained sniper, he trusts that, especially in a world that simulates reality. He dumps all his points into dexterity. Once it's over 55, he gets ready to go all in. While the other adventurers run, he draws the rabbit's attention to buy them time to escape. His attack is high. He just needs to land 1 shot. If he misses, it's over for everyone. He loads the gun, but 2 players sprint straight toward him, with the rabbit right behind them. He asks why they came back. The red-haired mage yells at him to hurry up and save them, or they're done. They talk so much trash he actually considers shooting them. He takes a deep breath, remembers his training, waits for the moment. The rabbits catch up to the mages, who drop to the ground right in his line of fire. He shoots. The bullet whizzes past the mage's head and nails one rabbit right in the forehead. It drops dead. The cleric keeps running from the second one and falls. No time. Lee Ha grabs the mage and runs, or they'll be next. She's stunned. It was one shot. Is he high level? He just wanted time to reload. He didn't expect the cleric to die. He needs to keep his distance until he reloads, but the rabbit finishes off the cleric and comes after them. He thinks it's over, and keeps running anyway. A blue-haired girl appears up ahead, casting magic. The witch tells them to duck. Ice spears shoot out and almost hit Lee Ha, freezing the monster in place. In the chaos, she asks his name. It's to form a party. She wants to pay him back for saving her life. He answers. The party is formed. She makes a fire tornado and throws it at the frozen rabbit. The monster finally dies. Lee Ha levels up and gets a group, but he's worried the item's burned, and she takes the loot. She explains, she got the last hit, so it's hers. Since he killed the first one solo, he can keep that one. She smiles, fair trade. After the fight, the 2 girls start following Lee Ha, and it annoys him. The ice girl introduces herself as Ram Hwayeon, and he adds, the other one is Ram Hwajung. The fire mage thinks it's weird he doesn't know them. Hwajung is famous in Hong Kong, nicknamed Snowflake. Lee Ha asks if they've heard of him. When they say no, he says he's not obligated to know anyone either. He tries to say goodbye and leave. Ram points out the herb he was looking for is still there. He's confused. They said the location was secret, and he worries he might have failed the quest. Ram says he can tell other players about it. The mage realizes he's just scared they'll steal the item. They ask how he killed Angus with 1 shot when it had full HP. Lee Ha says it was luck. He gets a bunch of achievements boosting his stats. One says he's starting to understand weaknesses and crits. The 2 take him to a restaurant to celebrate. He asks who they really are. An NPC let Hwajung pass without even questioning her. The fire mage introduces herself as Ram Hwayeon and introduces her sister, Ram Hwajung. Lee Ha doubts the whole fire mage thing since she basically just ran during the fight. She says she didn't pick the class name. Back to the point. What's the secret behind that hit? He says he just shot. They don't buy it. They ask his level. It must be high. Hwajung says it was an insta-kill. With his stats, even a crit wouldn't be enough. Only an instant death effect would explain it. Lee Ha's thrown off by how she knows his stats, skills, and items. Hwajung says only a level 90 could have taken that rabbit down in 1 hit. Not 90 strength. Level 90. He remembers an achievement asking if he wasn't ashamed to hunt in a beginner area. Now he gets it. He beat something only a level 90 could, and the game bugged out. There are still questions, but Hwajung invites him to their guild. Her sister is top of the global rankings and the guild is famous. Even if he's low level and poorly geared, he could grow fast. Surprisingly, Lee Ha refuses. He jokes that his mom taught him never to take candy from strangers. Really, the offer feels way too good. Why would a top guild pick him of all people? Even with Hwajung pushing. He says he'll research other guilds first. Hwajung accepts it. Better than saying yes to everything. She sends a friend request and he accepts. Then he stands up, says he'll pay the bill, and thanks them for saving his life. While her sister pays, Hwajung keeps flirting and says they'll meet again. They leave. He tries to process everything and decides to go collect rewards with Annie. He stops by an accessory shop. The seller's impressed he beat the rabbit in less than a day. He turns in another quest to the blacksmith and gets money. He levels up again, turns in the hide at a clothing shop and gets new armor. His bargaining skill and his friendship in the city go up. Finally, he heads to the bakery. Annie greets him warmly and even gives him free bread. They're not strangers anymore. The other players find the sudden change weird, especially after she called him poor. She asks about the herbs. He hands them over. She practically faints from happiness. He asks if they're really that good. She says the smell is irresistible. He mentions they came from rabbit poop. He leaves, finishes the quest, and gets a bonus. Still wondering if all that stress was even worth it. At Madame Rue's place, she's already heard rumors about the fight. He realizes that being friends changes how NPCs treat him. He delivers the meat and gets a lunchbox, but she asks him to wait. Then part 2 pops up, defeat the bird of the Mountain of Light, the Sword Eagle, the final boss of the Castle of Light. To unlock it, he needs to be level 10. He's like, why is the reward just food? She answers bluntly. She wants to sell the meat in the capital, influence politicians and make a profit. He's shocked. Corruption in the game. She even gives him extra food because of the rabbits. When he checks the lunchbox, he realizes it gives permanent buffs and it's a rare item, only below epic and unique. He could sell it and make good money, but the tag says it can't be traded. That kills his excitement. Still, he thanks her. It's rare either way. Better stay humble. Life changes fast. Feeling confident, when Madame asks about the eagle, he accepts immediately. He leaves and checks his status. Level 8. He needs 2 more levels, so he goes to grind. Before that, he eats the food he got. It's so good it draws other players' attention. He praises the GMs for the realistic texture. Ready to train, until he realizes he's out of bullets. He curses the GMs and heads to the shop. He figures being friends might get him a discount. Nope, the shopkeeper is still rude and overpriced. He only buys 23 packs to save money. The shopkeeper notices he's got cash and catches a weird smell. Lee Ha says it's rabbit meat. The guy freaks out. It's not rabbit, it's bread. He remembers Annie's bread made with that herb. The shopkeeper recognizes the smell and asks for a piece. Lee Ha refuses. It was hard to get. The man offers a silver coin. Lee Ha asks for 5 and almost blows the deal. He activates haggle and holds his ground. The shopkeeper starts bargaining again, offering extra ammo and 2 coins. Lee Ha sticks to 5, but the guy has a limit. After a lot of back and forth, they settle. The bread for 70 packs of ammo. Lee Ha also asks for the gunpowder supplier's contact, and the shopkeeper agrees. In real life, he celebrates. Saving on gunpowder already helps. He wants to get rich fast so he can take care of his parents. For now, he relaxes watching Middle-earth Diary, checking prices and possible quests. The commentators announce Middle-earth news and changes in the top 10. They also talk about Ram Pwajung's run through the Castle of Light. She's famous after all. We also find out she's the eldest daughter of the CEO of the Ramlong group. They ask why she'd be in a starter town. Someone being interviewed says she was looking for a player to recruit. Nobody knows who it was, but they must have been strong. Lee Ha realizes it was him and feels relieved nobody saw his face, until the commentator mentions the player used a firearm. He freezes. He was the only musketeer there and falls out of his chair. To make it worse, they posted a video of him talking with the girls, and you can see his face. The comments say he was pretending to be a newbie just to get their attention. He kind of likes that theory, until people start asking what idiot plays musketeer these days. He thinks joining a guild would help him level up, but it still feels too good to be true. He decides to go back in-game and grind. In the game, he turns in fox pelts, crappy reward, and takes another mission, hunt wolves. He gets a free repair coupon, which is great since his gun stock is damaged. He heads to the plains, where there's even a danger sign. He sits and waits for a party. That way he'd have time to reload, but nobody shows up. He decides to hunt only lone wolves and save ammo until level 10. He crawls through the grass and sees a group fighting. The tank holds aggro, mages attack, healers heal. Jealous, he decides to make a move. He finds a wolf, preps his gun using a trick he saw on TV, and fires. Direct hit, the wolf drops. Another one shows up with red eyes. He didn't even see where it came from. His musket is almost breaking, so he has to avoid getting hit. He grabs ammo. He needs a full minute to reload, which is rough with the wolf that close. Still, he reloads as fast as he can, and barely has time to aim. Something weird happens. The wolf nearby doesn't rush him. He realizes the animal is moving, trying to get out of his line of fire. Moving targets are hard. Zigzagging like that, he'd miss even up close. He thinks about backing off, but he'd lose the loot from the first wolf. All or nothing. He pushes forward. He yells loud to get its attention. It works. The wolf charges, furious. That was the plan. With predictable movement, Lee Ho fires and clips it. That's enough. The wolf drops, not even understanding what happened. The shout mimicked a gunshot and fooled the animal. He can't tell if the wolf was smart for noticing the pattern, or dumb for falling for the trick. After leveling up his musket skill, he checks the area. Looks clear. Until a huge shadow appears behind him. The figure asks how he did that. It's another player, massive, tagging along with a lizard man and a crow. Lee Ho freaks out, thinking they're monsters. The lizard explains, they're players. He's shocked. He'd only seen races like that on the website, and starts to leave. The lizard calls him back and he apologizes. They ask if he hunts alone and how he killed the wolves with one shot. They also invite him to join their party. Similar levels. Even though he's nervous, he realizes they're chill and want help dealing with packs of 3 wolves. They noticed his reload is slow and offer to cover him. He agrees, asking if level 8 is an issue. It isn't. They start hunting. Damage over time, the giant tanks and heals. He introduces himself. The lizard is Bayemi, a poison mage. The giant is Jinggong. Li Ha asks his class and gets this weird sense of deja vu. Then he remembers. Jing is the player who lost energy, picking a class and accidentally became a druid. The giant confirms it, embarrassed. He even got pity donations. Bayemi changes the subject, saying he's from Vietnam. Li Ha likes the team, even if he's basically the main damage dealer. They decide to go for it. But the fight turns into a mess. Jing starts yelling at the crow to attack like a little kid watching cartoons. Li Ha tries not to laugh and loses focus. Bayemi looks like he's charging up some huge poison attack, but he just spits out something pathetic that only pisses the wolves off. Li Ha can barely aim because he's laughing at the team, but every miss costs him a full minute of reload time. He locks in and nails a wolf right as it's about to hit Jing Gong Gong. Another one attacks. Jing raises his hands and brings them down in a hammer smash, dropping it. Bayemi darts in and drives his sword in to finish it. A third shows up, but Li Ha's already reloaded and drops it with a shot. He's hyped about the teamwork. His musket skill improves and he hits level 9. Bayemi congratulates him. Li Ha thanks them for the help. Bayemi says it was Li Ha's damage and Jing's tanking. The giant gets all awkward. Li Ha wants to turn in the quest, but Bayemi suggests waiting until he's at 90% of level 9. That way the reward pushes him straight to level 10, and they can do the eagle mission together. He agrees. They spend days grinding while other players look at their weird style. Jing gets better as a tank, holding wolves, healing and yelling out every attack. Bayemi pops up behind them, spitting poison. Li Ha steps out of the bushes and finishes with a shot. Weird but effective. The crazy part is Bayemi casting while moving. Jing compares it to running with a full cup without spilling. Li Ha remembers he's only seen that with Puijong from the top 10. How's Bayemi doing that at level 9? He doesn't ask. They rest and check XP. Bayemi says the Eagle quest is recommended for level 12 or 13, but they can grind until Li Ha hits 10. Li Ha thought it needed 5 level 12 players, but Bayemi wants to try it with 3 level 10s. After more fights, night falls. Li Ha finally gets enough XP. Bayemi and Jing also reach level 10. They head back to town, turn in the pelts, and Li Ha finally hits level 10. When he levels up, Li Ha's screen turns red. He doesn't get it, until he realizes he completed a secret quest, 100% friendship with the town. He gets the honorary member title, flashy effects that make everyone stare, and extra rewards including a repair coupon. Embarrassed by all the attention, he bolts. Outside the village, he rests and complains about being put on display. Bayemi explains, only newbies live there, no one's ever seen 100% reputation. Li Ha asks how he knew. Bayemi plays it off, saying he recognized the animation from online. Li Ha pretends to buy it, but he's suspicious. Normally quests only give 60%. Li Ha remembers all the extra NPC errands he did while hunting. Bayemi and Jing are surprised. They didn't know about that. Bayemi internally still can't believe Li Ha killed Angus at level 5. After that, Li Ha goes to the ammo shop. Even with reputation, everything's still expensive, so he starts haggling. An NPC tries to explain a quest, but he cuts them off. He just wants the eagle one. He gets the mission and finds out the reward is now reputation with the kingdom, way rarer. With everything set, the trio heads out. On the way, they see players who failed and lost their tank. Li Ha calls them campers, even though he's kinda doing the same thing. They ignore them and keep going. They reach the meetup spot with parties and vendors. Bayemi says bad groups need good gear just to survive. Li Ha remembers a strong group that still failed and wonders if they can really pull it off. He suggests getting more people, but Bayemi says nobody would join. Weird comp and only level 10. Then he asks Li Ha to trust him. There's a plan. The dungeon portal opens. Bayemi asks for cover. Huayon fights off the wolves until her sister shows up and tells them to back off. Huayon freezes everything with ice mist. Huayon complains there aren't any left. Her sister says to save mana. Those don't even give XP. Huayan teases her, so you froze everything just to show off. Huayanzhang says it didn't even use 1% of her mana. Huayan thanks her when her sister's carrying, quests are easy. Huayanzhang reminds her she needs to land the last hit to get XP. No time to waste, she tells her sister to use a stronger spell. Since the enemies fly, Huayan doubts the range, but Huayanzhang tells her to trust her. She starts chanting in Norse. The enemies close in, then get surrounded by freezing air and stabbed by ice spikes. They drop, still alive. Huayanzhang steps out of the party so her sister can get all the XP. Huayan fires stronger fire arrows and finishes them off. In the dungeon, Li Hai gets the musket ready. Bayemi asks if Jinggong has won with nature. He does, but not for combat. Still works. Li has surprised Bayemi knows so much. The lizard man just tells him to follow behind them. He'll get it soon. The invasion continues and the plan starts. Bayemi coats his body in poison. Li Hai thinks that's insane. Bayemi tells Jing to use one with nature and says to trust him. Wolves won't come near. They head into the territory toward the boss, the sword eagle. A wolf shows up. Li Hai wants to act. Bayemi tells him to relax and walks right up to it. The animal doesn't attack. The plan works. The realistic AI avoids poisoned prey. Since the lizard man resists poison, he can just cover himself in it. Jing camouflages as a tree. Li Hai just has to use the poison smell. Li Hai's impressed by the loophole, until a crow flies up, calling for Jing. The camouflage breaks. The wolves catch the scent too late. About 20 of them surround them. Jing apologizes and says he'll distract them while the others run. He'll take 2 days to get back into the game. Li Ha refuses to leave his friend. While the others are talking calmly, he takes it seriously and starts thinking of a plan using the AI. He asks for a second. Jing asks what the idea is. If they stall, the wolves will attack. Li Ha gets ready and says they're a team. If they're going down fighting together. Bayemi asks what the plan is. Since the musket only hits one target at a time, Li Ha just reloads, but with 2 packs of gunpowder and no bullet. He tells everyone to cover their ears. He fires massive explosion. The other 2 almost go deaf and complain. Great, now the wolves are definitely coming, but the pack turns and ignores the group. Li Ha tells them to run and says he'll explain later. While they're escaping, he explains he used something different. The wolves follow the smell of the gunpowder. Once they lose them, Bayemi realizes it was a sound and smell distraction. It worked because the game is realistic. Even humans can't handle gunpowder up close. He compliments Li Ha's knowledge and asks if he's played Middle-earth before. Li Ha thinks it's obvious they're literally in the game, but Bayemi changes the subject. Jing asks them to look away so he can summon the crow. They think it's some secret skill, he's just embarrassed. They insist on watching. With no choice, he does a ridiculous dance with a shiny final pose. The other 2 crack up laughing. He says without the dance it won't work. Summons come from the heart. They mess with him a bit more until the crow shows up. They head to the top of the mountain to face the boss. From far away they see the eagle, way bigger than they expected. Li Ha jokes that soon they'll be fighting something the size of a house. The boss is 4 times bigger than the other eagles. Bayemi explains, it starts with a dive bomb, it can rip arms off, then it lands and lets out a supersonic screech that stuns. They should attack while it's in the tree. Below 30% it loses flight. Jing does max damage and Bayemi distracts the minions. Li Ha asks to shoot first. Bayemi would rather wipe the smaller birds first, then focus the boss. Bayemi asks why pick the riskier option. He might not even hit from that far. Li Ha says at 90 meters he can. If he misses, Bayemi starts casting. He also tells Jing to lie down. He's going to use his body as a rest. The big guy turns into a tripod. Not happy about it. Li Ha aims. The eagle lines up. Since the bullet's slow, he leads the shot and fires. Direct hit. He tells them to move in when it falls. But a message pops up. New achievement. He defeated the eagle with a single shot. Everyone levels up. Musket level 4. Sword eagle feather and +1 to all stats. Jing thanks him for the bonuses. Bayemi can't believe it. They grab the drops, dungeon ejection in 30 seconds. More achievements pop up. One roasting him for hunting in a beginner area. Another sniper etymology gives the skill calm heart and stat bonuses. Then another one. He's the 2nd player in the world to get it, entering the Hall of Fame. No time, Bayemi tells them to get out. Outside the dungeon, they celebrate now they're real players. Back in town, everyone's talking about the bonus rewards. Bayemi only wants to know how he killed the boss in a single shot. That wasn't some random fly. Even with high DPS, it should have taken a while. Buff? Nope. Crit? Maybe luck. Li Ha says if he knew how to repeat it, he'd already be level 50. Bayemi doesn't look convinced. Honestly, Li Ha doesn't get it either. The lizard apologizes. Jing says they basically hit the jackpot as a party. Li Ha remembers the sniper motto, never let them know it was you. He decides to keep it low-key and turns the quest in to the vice captain. He gains reputation with the country, levels up, and gets a letter to the Brown Best Musketeer Academy in the capital, the best on the continent. The captain says he'll learn way more there about enemy weak points. Li Ha finds it weird that the vice captain knows he understands monster weaknesses, until he remembers the achievement that revealed it. Suddenly the guy hugs him tight, thanks him, and asks him to become someone great for the kingdom. Li Ha knows it's because his reputation is maxed, but it's still super awkward. Even other players think it's weird. He asks his teammates where they're headed. Jim Gong is going to the Emerald Forest to train as a druid. Bayemi's heading to the Tamba jungle. Li Ha is leaving for the capital. Ail's group's over for now. They say goodbye, promising they'll meet again. Alone, he opens his status. Tons of achievements. High stats even though he's only been focusing on dexterity. He's level 12 now with free points. He finds a skill called Calm Heart. Boosts accuracy if he stays calm for 3 seconds. 30-second cooldown. He complains about how short it lasts, but figures it'll improve later. He goes to turn in the quest to Madame Rue. She recognizes him, gets way too close, and calls him by his title. She jokes, asking if the meat is fake. He swears it isn't. He hands over the eagle meat. She confirms it and makes the promised lunchbox, saying her husband was sad he didn't get to talk to him earlier. Then the husband shows up, huge and kind of creepy, staring at Li Ha instead of the meat. He thanks him with a crushing hug, and says only a true meat lover couldn't be a bad person. Then he asks if Li Ha wants to learn cooking. Li Ha thinks there's no chef class, but there are crafting skills. Since he can only have 2, maybe it's worth learning dishes that give permanent bonuses. He says yes. Chef Guillaume Mifgar promises to teach him. A window pops up asking if he wants to train with the great chef. He accepts confidently. He cooked in the army, he should be fine. Training starts and the chef absolutely destroys the food he makes. The chef yells like a reality show host, saying not even a dog would eat that. Regretting ever teaching him, he keeps roasting him. Li Ha only doesn't shoot him because he'd get banned, so he holds it in. After a bunch of dishes, it's time for another evaluation. Out of patience, Li Hao threatens him. If he doesn't pass him, he'll shoot for real. By some miracle, Gyo approves him, and even says it was thanks to his amazing teacher. Totally traumatized, Li Hao leaves the shop trying not to come back and murder the chef, but he does get the cooking skill. On the way out, he notices a vitality debuff from training, and runs into Madame Ru, who hands him the promised lunchbox. She asks for another favor. He complains about yet another quest, and says he's not accepting until he knows what it is. Annoyed, she puts another lunchbox on the table. Deliver food and a letter to her sister in the capital. Failing would massively drop their friendship. Weird for a final quest. He asks if he's going to have to fight a monster. She says worse. People, maybe even assassins. Then she laughs and says she's kidding. With a 1-month deadline, he figures he can get there in 15 days, and he's going to the capital anyway because of the academy. He accepts. Ru says the lunchbox has magical preservation, but the taste won't last forever, so don't mess up the delivery. He takes both lunchboxes and heads out, but first eats his to boost his stats. He thinks he'd get rich if he could make stuff like that. Then he reads the description on the other one. Insanely high bonus, unique item, and tradable. Immediately he thinks about selling it. In real life, he checks the prices. It'd be worth a fortune, like 5% of the cost of the surgery that would let him walk again. But selling it would wreck his reputation with the capital. He hesitates. They're just NPCs, programmed data. Is it really worth it? While he's thinking, his mom walks into the room asking if everything's okay. She asks why he's still up and says tomorrow she has an important dinner, so she'll be home late, but she'll leave food ready. Touched, Li Hao decides to stop thinking about the lunchbox for now. He'll go to the capital and figure it out on the way. In-game, he goes to the ammo shop. The seller, weirdly friendly, asks about the herb. Li Hao says he couldn't get it. He also asks about the supplier they talked about. The guy says he should be arriving soon and offers tea. While they drink, Li Hao asks about maps. They cost 5 gold, premium item. Now he gets why people just take screenshots. He passes for now. The supplier arrives, Babu. He and Li Hao lock eyes. Li Hao asks for cheap ammo. Babu agrees. The shop owner tries to kick the kid out so he can negotiate a loan, but Babu blurts out the prices. Bullets for 1 copper, gunpowder for 4. Li Hao realizes he'd been getting ripped off before, and calls the seller out about the 15 he used to pay. He starts to leave, telling the guy to go find the herb himself. The man begs and promises any reward. Li Hao asks for a musket. Not happening. So he picks the expensive map instead. The seller hesitates, but when he hears it's about the herb, he agrees. Li Hao walks out winning, loaded with ammo. After that, he opens a bank account to make buying stuff easier. He remembers his cousin Qijong and calls him. Says he hit level 12 and they'll be able to meet up in the capital. Qijong's shocked that the Sword Eagle got taken down so fast, and promises to welcome him properly. He asks if Li Hao ran into Quaijong. When Li Hao says yes, Qijong gets pissed. Li Hao jokes like, "What, are you her fan club?" Nope, he wants to take her down. He says his guild tried to surround her and got wrecked easily while she was smiling. They lost levels, money, and he went days without sleeping. Now he wants revenge. Li Hao gets his cousin's problem, but it's not just that. Qijong says her sister is also wrecking the economy in small towns. Those two are such a headache that the 5 biggest guilds in the kingdom formed an alliance against them. Li Hao realizes that if he'd accepted the invite, his own cousin would probably beat him up in real life. They end the call saying they'll talk later. He's left thinking a lot of people mix up the game with real life. Maybe it's better to avoid guilds for now. He puts that aside and focuses on reaching the capital. He opens the map he just bought and realizes it works like GPS. He thinks back to the army. A sniper with a map always has the advantage. He checks his items enough and keeps moving. 3 hours later, he's already far away thanks to his running skill. A sign warns about ambushes in the area. When he enters the forest, he hears fighting nearby. A knight is facing a huge grizzly bear while the group supports him. There are snakes around too. The knight uses 2 shields, pure defense. More players come running in. Some bail, others want loot. A raid starts forming, recruiting anyone with high damage. Li Hao watches and figures, you'd need like 20 people for a boss like that. And he's not much help since range damage sucks against the bear. The guild is called Kim Flower Petal. He thinks the name's weird and backs off, hiding behind a rock. The leader organizes things. Healers take care of the injured. DPS stays close to the tanks. Pretty solid setup for a bunch of strangers. An archer pulls aggro. The bear roars. The effect reaches even Li Hao from far away. Everyone gets paralyzed for almost 2 minutes. The monster charges in to crush them. Even from a distance, Li Hao can't move either, and he's stunned by the size bigger than an elephant. He tries to react, panicking, scared he'll be noticed, and the feeling of not being able to move his legs makes him think of the real world. He wonders if the group can hold out long enough. The leader tells the healers to remove the effect as the bear closes in. Then the captain steps up and with both shields blocks the monster's hit. The captain looks over and spots Li Hao with the musket. He says he would have invited him to the party if he'd known, and the mage confirms it was a headshot. He considers pulling aggro so Li Hao can shoot again, but drops it. Even if he hits, the kid would die during the 1-minute reload. The bear gets up even angrier and roars, paralyzing Li Hao again. He tries to reload, basically impossible like this. A few survivors run and distract the boss for a moment, but they soon go down in the flames. Desperate, Li Hao calls out to the captain for help. No answer. He already ran. The bear finishes wiping everyone out. Li Hao takes a deep breath and finally finishes reloading. He aims at the flaming monster. He fires. Another headshot. The shot echoes and catches the captain's attention from far away. The group is stunned. 2 shots in a row. They suggest going back to help and split the loot, but the captain refuses. Without his shields, he'd be the first to die. The last player drops. Only Lee Ha is left. Even so, the captain decides to gather reinforcements and come back later. Maybe even steal Lee Ha's loot. Cut to the village. He tells everyone what happened and recruits a bunch of players. Half an hour later, they return to the spot. The forest is wrecked, but the bear is gone. He says the boss must have run off because it was low on HP, and tells them to move carefully. 2 hours searching. Nothing. 3 hours, people start complaining, thinking he made it up. The captain insists. The destruction proves the bear was there. It's just hiding somewhere hurt. The players agree to look a bit longer, but warn him, if they don't find anything, his reputation's done. He starts sweating and wonders if the musketeer really killed the boss alone. Cut to 4 hours earlier. Lee Ha is still fighting. The bear survived the headshot and is even more furious, setting everything around it on fire. The paralysis wears off, and Lee Ha backs up to reposition. He spots the captain's group running away and gets annoyed, but forces himself to refocus. While dodging, he reloads as he walks, something he practiced. He lines up the shot. 3 headshots should do it. But the bear's already close. 1 swipe sends him flying. The game only transmits 20% of real pain, still hurts like hell. Low HP, blurry vision. He tries to listen for the monster, but the bear moves silently. He focuses. The next hit decides everything. He remembers the sniper mantra and feels the enemy's presence. He dodges and shoots it in the chin. The bear staggers back, but it's still standing after 3 shots. Out of options, Lee Ha uses bayonet charge, the skill he thought was useless. He rushes in and drives the musket into the bear's chest, tearing it even more when he yanks it back out. He takes another hit and goes down. Cut to him waking up, not knowing what happened. Messages pop up. He gained a bunch of levels. He went up 9 class levels and his musket skill hit level 5. He beat the bear. He celebrates and starts collecting loot. The system tells him the boss was 50 levels higher than him. He gets into the Hall of Fame and earns stat and damage buffs. Now he's level 21, with a ton of points to spend. He puts almost everything into dexterity, and a little into HP. He picks up weapons from dead players to sell later. Then he grabs the bear's drops. A full rare fur set, cloak, hood, and boots, with resistance to fear and fire. No weapon, but still an awesome reward. Since the new set is better than anything he had, Lee Ha equips it and gets the resistances and stat bonuses. It fits perfectly, properly geared up now. He keeps moving. Cut to Captain Kim getting absolutely roasted. The clip of him running away went viral. In real life, he's as huge as his avatar, and he even smashes his keyboard in rage. Not knowing Lee Ha killed the bear, he swears he'll hunt down whoever did it. He suspects the protagonist, but thinks there's no way he could have beaten the boss alone. Still, he decides to look into him. Back in the game, Lee Ha keeps going calmly. With fire resistance, maybe he can even tank Huion's magic. He thinks about his cousin and how he might have to face the sisters later. He opens the map. Biemi and Jingong are far away, and the sisters went to the Gamsabong kingdom. His stomach growls. He's hungry. He goes bear hunting. Since then, he's hit level 23. He finds one, checks the wind and distance, and shoots, just to graze. Weirdly, the bear doesn't react. The first set stops other bears from attacking him. Second shot, he drops it and collects the loot. At this pace, he'll hit level 30 before the capital. Another bear is watching, a white cub. Way too cute, and it grabs onto his clothes. Lee Ha realizes he might have killed its mother, and feels guilty. He can't shoot it. Instead, he gives it bread. The cub's happy. Honestly, it even looks like it could become a future pet. He tries to leave, but the sad look makes him stop. He sighs, picks the little bear up, and wonders what to do. He calls his cousin Kijin and Ong, and says he'll be late getting to the capital. His cousin tells him to be careful with bears while totally ignoring studying so he can play raids. Lee Ha asks if you can have pets in the game. Kijin thinks he means a horse. He asks about taming wild monsters. His cousin says it's basically impossible without a tamer class. Monsters see humans as enemies. Even so, the cub keeps clinging to him. He asks if he can raise a cub like a baby. Kijin says cubs are rare, and they give the same EXP as adults, so people always kill them first. Lee Ha gets discouraged, says goodbye, and promises to meet his cousin in the capital. He looks at the cub on the ground and sighs. If he leaves it there, some other player will farm it, so he decides to take it with him. Next day, while hunting bears, he reaches level 24. He notices the cub also gains EXP and grows. He keeps collecting drops to sell, until a golden snake shows up, bites his leg and slithers off. Poison 50 damage every 10 seconds for 3 minutes. He survives, but barely has any HP left. The cub finds and kills the snake. Lee Ha hugs the bear, then it immediately starts tearing into the snake like it has zero mercy. After that, it grows way too fast. Before long, it turns into a mount. Next day, the bear's already huge and Lee Ha is riding it. Other players attack him a bunch of times thinking it's a monster, so the protagonist has to step in. He realizes he's going to have problems in the capital. When he reaches a town, guards block the entrance because they're scared of the bear. Lee Ha tries to explain it's harmless. Then the bear bites a nearby head and everyone runs. With no way to get in, he decides to leave. He hears locals wondering why someone would ride a bear instead of a horse, and that gives him an idea. He asks if it can run fast. The bear takes off instantly. Now the two of them speed toward the capital, avoiding people. 2 days later, they get close to Alestock. When he sees the castle, he thinks about his lunchbox, the academy, and finally meeting up with his cousin again. Get off the bear and walk so you don't draw attention. But walking slowly doesn't help. Just getting close is enough to make players panic when they see a giant bear. Lee Ha tries to explain he's raised the bear since it was a cub, but nobody listens and they tell him to back up toward the walls. NPC guards show up and start getting ready to attack. Annoyed, he warns them anyone who comes near the bear is getting shot. The mages ignore him and throw fire and ice. Lee Ha fires to intercept and notices something weird. A mage steps in, raises a holy shield, and activates an anti-magic zone. The bullet and the spells get compressed into a sphere of light and vanish. The flash blinds everyone for a moment. When people can see again, a knight orders Lee Ha to lower his weapon. Nobody's allowed to cause trouble in Alestock. They're holy knights. He says it was a misunderstanding and nobody will be punished. But if Lee Ha fires one more shot, there won't be any forgiveness. Lee Ha complains they attacked first. The knight agrees, but still, bringing the bear caused chaos. Even so, he's letting it slide. The female mages get a warning. Offensive magic is banned in the capital, but they were trying to protect civilians. The knight disperses the crowd. Lee Ha leaves, relieved, with the bear, until they call him back. They ask him to come with them for a moment. He suspects it's an ambush. The knight introduces himself, Sir Cindergaard. He swears on his honor he won't harm Lee Ha or the bear. Lee Ha agrees, still confused. Cindergaard tells Sir DeGrom to guide him through the city. With no real choice, he follows. As they walk, Cindergaard realizes something. The holy shield supposed to stop any attack cracked from Lee Ha's shot. That oath gives Lee Ha an achievement and plus a 50 reputation on the continent. DeGrom stops along the way and asks about the bear. He says he knows Lee Ha is an honorary member of the Castle of Lightguard, so he doesn't need to be so suspicious. Cindergaard shows up again and says someone like him would never cause trouble. Lee Ha asks how they knew he was an honorary guard member. Cindergaard says they already know he works for the good of the kingdom. The protagonist realizes it was his quest reputation that made the knights trust him, so he tells the whole story, how he found and tamed the bear on the way to the city, and how he beat a bunch of bears including a bear of agony. Cindergaard gets that the bear is tame, but he can't let it walk around Alestock. A giant bear would cause mass panic. A soldier says bears need to live with other bears, and suggests releasing the cub back into the wild. Lee Ha hesitates. You can't really tell a domesticated bear from a wild one, and some player might attack it. Still, with no choice, he agrees to release the bear immediately. The little guy looks confused. Before leaving, DeGrom asks his name. Lee Ha the Musketeer. The two knights sprout angel wings and take off, saying they won't forget that name even if it's kind of funny. They disappear into the sky, leaving the protagonist jealous of their ridiculous aura. Lee Ha takes the bear outside the city. They walk until night. The bear hugs him. Lee Ha says it's better if they split up. He remembers their time together. Short, but he got attached and starts walking away, leaving the bear sad. Suddenly the bear bites his hand, freaking him out. Why? The bear starts licking the wound and then it shines brightly. An achievement pops up, soul bond created. He'll never forget that bear. Lee Ha is the third player in the game to get it. He gets buffs and enters the Hall of Fame. The bear cries. Lee Ha promises he'll never forget him. He asks the bear not to get hunted, but at that size, it'll probably be the one doing the hunting. They say goodbye. Lee Ha feels weird. He didn't even feel like this when he separated from Amy. He absent-mindedly kicks a rock. The rock hits a wolf which howls and charges. Before it attacks, a new skill appears. He can summon the bear's soul whenever he wants, even if it dies. The summon is half his level, but it can grow stronger. Meanwhile, the bear joins the other bears and quickly becomes almost like a leader. Lee Ha heads back to the city and gets there in the morning. Alestock is packed. He wonders how he's supposed to find his cousin. So he calls him. His cousin explains, the capital is where everyone goes when they've got nothing better to do, so it's always crowded. Lee Ha asks where he is. Kijong says he's at the south gate and he's been waiting forever. Lee Ha doesn't know where that is, but his cousin tells him not to worry. The gate doesn't have any landmarks anyway. Turns out Kijong was right next to him the whole time. Lee Ha gets annoyed and asks why he didn't say anything. Kijong says he just wanted to watch him struggle like a noob. After chewing him out, Lee Ha notices something. His cousin is way better geared than he expected. Kijong says it's normal for a high-level player to use that. He looks at the main guy's bear set and asks if he bought it or stole the drop. Lee Ha says he's not some bum, he got it by hunting. His cousin doesn't believe he got that strong that fast. Then another player shows up and introduces himself. A red-haired mage, Haiyan. He says he's heard a lot about Lee Ha. According to Kijong, Lee Ha was a real-life sniper and has huge potential. Kijong gets a little embarrassed. Lee Ha feels proud. His cousin's a good guy, he just doesn't show it. Another member shows up and recognizes the set. He praises him. Beating the bear boss at that level is insane. The kid introduces himself as Sosuke. They ask if he's Japanese. He's not. He just based the name on a pretty obvious character. Kijong asks about the boss. Sosuke explains it got famous because of a video of a tank freaking out and running away. It was Captain Kim. Sosuke notices something when he looks at Lee Hei's set, but he doesn't say anything. Then Kijong introduces another player, Tile. He says he called everyone to help Lee Hei's level up. When they ask what level Lee Hei's 25, the whole group freezes. They whisper to Kijong he was supposed to be a newbie. Kijong asks if it's true. Lee Haste confirms it. He hunted a bit since the last time they met. Haichin does the math. If he killed the Sword Eagle, he should be around level 12. It makes no sense that he jumped more than 10 levels. He asks for Lee Hae's number, saying they're going to be seeing each other a lot. The rest of the group asks for it too. Haichin wraps it up. They've got other stuff to handle, and Kijong calls him the guildmaster. They say goodbye and open a portal, leaving the cousins alone. Kijong gets jealous. Teleporting beats walking. He tells Lee Haste to spill everything and promises to buy him a snack. They're at a tavern. Kijong's impressed by his cousin's skill and the fact he took down a field boss. He figures it's possible at his level. High musket damage plus crits on weak points. He talks about the bear raid that went wrong. The group didn't know how to work together, and everything fell apart. He remembers the captain running off and leaving the bear focused on the other players. But that gave Lee Haste time to aim without becoming the target. So yeah, with the musket's damage and the bear already almost dead, Kijong admits it. His cousin really did kill the boss. He's impressed and remembers an archer in the guild who couldn't hit anything until he turned auto-aim back on. They talk about range, and Kijong's like, if the musket only reaches 40 meters, how did Lee Haste kill the bear from that far with one shot? Lee Haste corrects him, it wasn't one shot, it was 3. And he finished it off with a bayonet charge when he ran out of bullets. Kijong doesn't get how the bear was still standing after that. Then Lee Hae drops the bomb. He's been hunting the whole time with no aim assist. Why? To learn how to actually play. With aim assist, your accuracy caps at 50%. Without it, it's all on your real aim. When he says all 3 shots were headshots, Kijong gets mad he didn't say that sooner. Still impressed, he asks if Lee Hae wants to join the guild. Lee Hae says no, not right now. Kijong keeps pushing. His guild is one of the strongest on the server, which is why he introduced Lee Hae to the top guys. The leader's famous, shows up on TV, top 8 in Korea and top 40 worldwide. One spell from him just wipes enemies. Lee Hae isn't impressed. He's already met Waijong, who's rank 9 in the world. He asks what his cousin's rank is. Awkwardly, Kijong admits, top 100 in Korea, Master Templar K. He starts bragging. Lee Hae has to hold himself back from shooting him. Global rank 500 isn't that amazing. In 100 million players, yeah it is. He's 2 levels away from 200, and the level cap is way higher than it looked. Lee Hae's shocked. Kijong says after they eat he'll show him the capital before the academy. Back at the guild, Tail says bye and leaves for a mission, leaving Sasuke and Hien alone. Hien wants to talk privately and asks if anyone's watching. Sasuke uses his eye skills and confirms, nobody. Hien compliments him, not many people slip past his detection. They look over a photo of Lee Hae. Even with different gear it's obviously him. Level 25 confirmed. They conclude with hidden stats he's not a newbie. Hien asks if he managed to see his achievements. He didn't. Hien accuses the Ram Witches of using the musketeer against the guild. He's not falling for it. Cornered. Sosuke says he doesn't know if they know Kei and Lee are cousins, or if they're trying to squeeze info out of them. The redhead calls him an idiot. Those were rhetorical questions. What bugs him is not knowing what the witch's next move is. Sosuke says he did manage to see the kid's title. Which one? Fearless. It gives an attack bonus. You only get it by beating a monster 20 levels higher than you. Hien figures the sisters must really trust him. They let him land the final hit, so the Korean player they recruited can only be the gun guy, the only musketeer at that level in the game. He thinks the girls are helping the protagonist. Sosuke says they still can't be sure. Hien insists, a few days ago he was a broke newbie, and now he's level 25 without a single legendary hunt. The gear he was using is rare, no way he got it alone without the sisters' help. Sosuke suggests, maybe he did it solo. Hien slams the table, no chance a level 12 kills Agonia Oso alone. They hit his stats with an item. He freaks out. Lee Ha isn't smart enough to plan this. It was something set up days ago. Kicking the table, he orders them to raise the bounty for capturing the sisters, and to send Kei to keep an eye on his idiot cousin. Before leaving, he warns Sosuke not to trust Kei too much, and to keep monitoring Lee Ha. That's why they added him. He points a finger, use items to hide your location and keep a low profile. Sosuke just nods while the redhead draws a magic circle. With a forced smile, Hien asks if he looks friendly. Yeah, you do. He stares into his eyes. Terrible liar. Sosuke goes quiet. Hien apologizes and hugs him before they teleport. Sometime later in the city, Kei and Lee Ha are looking at a system screen. Kei comments on the map's insane price, while Lee tries to figure out where they are. They're in an alley. Lee says studying maps is basic sniper stuff. You need to know the terrain. Kei suggests they head to the academy. Lee asks about the quest Kei mentioned earlier, the Holy Grill one. When I hit level 100, I went to Candle Castle to check the quest list, and it wasn't there. Lee thinks it's weird. Kei went back there at that level. Kei dodges it and says nobody would buy that lunchbox anyway. Thinking it over, Lee realizes there isn't even a restaurant with that name in ale stock. People just eat from the lunchbox. He figures losing affinity won't hurt that much, and he can get it back in ale stock without going back to Candle Castle. Then he thinks, if he's the first to finish the mission, maybe a branch opens in the capital and changes the map. Kei says they should just eat the lunchbox already. It would give 4 levels, something that would take weeks, maybe months. He keeps going. Leveling high is hard, so just eat it. Time is money. Then he gets an idea. Lee Ha's surprised. Sell the item? While clothes dry on a clothesline, they talk it out. It'd be a waste to just eat it, and it also makes no sense to hoard food. Thinking about his mom, Lee Ha considers it. Selling it could pay for her surgery and help at home. Kay suggests talking to the guild leader to find a buyer. Lee Ha smiles and decides to go with him. What could go wrong? Kay starts his salesman pitch, saying he's already decided. Lee Ha says he'll think about it. Kay gets annoyed. He thought Lee said it was fine. I never said that. What is there to think about? Sniper stuff. Lee tells him to keep the item secret. Kay says he's in college, not stupid. Then someone says how nice it is to run into them again. Two holy knights walk up. One greets them with both hands, the other just waves. Kay panics. What did Lee do to get hunted? Nothing. They argue about night duties until Lee tells his cousin to shut up and say hello. He introduces the one with the pompadour as Sir Cinderella. The big guy looks confused. The other one starts laughing like crazy. Between laughs he introduces himself. Sir Digram. He tries to explain, fails and laughs again. His partner corrects him, Cinderguard. Lee realizes the mix-up and apologizes. He asks what they need. They say nothing. They were just passing by to say hi. Lee doesn't buy it. He says the bear has already been released in the South Forest. Cinderguard smiles. He never doubted him and thanks him for cooperating. Then he looks at Kay, a member of the Starlight Guild. Master Kay. They praise the guild's actions in the Northwest and shake his hand. Kay's trembling. He just wanted to level up. Digram says they need to get back to work. Lee's surprised. They really did come just to say hi. Cinderguard confirms, just a quick hello. They leave. Kay's left with his mouth hanging open. It's his first time talking to sacred guards. Convinced, Kay wonders if it was because of his fame or the guild emblem. Then it hits him. They weren't there for him. They were there for Lee Ha. He loses it. How do they know the musketeer when even he at a high level didn't? Lee explains, they just came to check if he released the bear. Kay asks for the full story and Lee tells him everything. After hearing it, Kay admits it makes sense, but he still thinks it's weird they know more about his cousin than him. His fame was already level 150. Lee's confused. His is 80, even with the level gap. Kay freaks out. No way someone has reputation that high at that level. I just did quests. You can't grind reputation before level 200. Lee insists he doesn't have any special strategy. Kay's exhausted trying to understand. They keep walking. Kay says she wants to see what he's going to do next. Lee says he plays seriously, to earn his bread. Kay suggests leveling up combat skills, but Lee notices a building. A wooden building. Musketeers Academy. They comment on how it's basically falling apart. Kay remembers. The nice academy they saw earlier belonged to the tankers. Lee complains about how unfair it is. Kay says multiple classes share an academy, so that's why theirs is better. He hands over 2 gold coins and some supplies, telling him not to sell the armor yet. Lee thanks him, juggling everything, 2 coins worth like 200 bucks. Kay says she's going to do quests and he can call her if he needs. Lee smiles. Lee decides to train. He opens the academy door, dark and abandoned. He asks if anyone's there. He sees stuff scattered around. It looks like a haunted shack. A shadow appears behind him. A weapon presses against the back of his neck. Don't move. Not a word. Do what I say and you'll keep breathing. Lee realizes this isn't some regular musketeer. He didn't even sense him. The bearded man tells him to speak without moving his body. Lee raises his hands, introduces himself, and says he's a musketeer. Who sent you? No one. The man's eyes light up when he hears about the recommendation letter from Giat, leader of the Candle Castle Guards. 3 steps forward. Slow. Or you'll be having tea with Queen Elizabeth II. Lee's impressed. Perfect distance, out of reach but still in his sights. The guy was good, putting the letter on the ground like he was told. Lee says the gun has no powder and asks if he can hold the shotgun. Don't even think about it. Back up 3 steps. He jokes that Lee's gonna bite it if he doesn't listen. The stranger kneels, picks up the letter and says that with that attitude he must be an outsider. And a musketeer too. The bearded guy mentions Lee's achievements. Lee realizes this has to be an NPC. Bearded, hat on, covered in scars. The man tells him to follow. Soon they're in a room. The bearded man's gun is on the table. Lee asks why it's just the 2 of them in an academy. The man snaps, shut up and sit. Lee obeys immediately. It reminds him way too much of a sergeant from his past. He decides to treat it like a military academy. The man says Giat is proud. He reads the letter full of praise and supportive talk. Didn't even know Giat could write this much. Lee thanks him. The man crumples it up and tosses it. Praise is useless. Leaning on the table, he explains that ethics don't matter for a musketeer, only skill. Lee agrees, ethics just saves time. You agree because of those half-ass achievements? No. The man stomps his foot, annoyed. Great, then this'll be easy. He tells Lee to stand and hands him the weapon to test his aim. As they walk, Lee thinks muskets don't even have sights. Weird way to teach. He wonders why it feels like a test. Anyone can enter the academy after level 10. Then a notification pops up. Entrance test. Fail means rejection. He tenses up. He doesn't know what the test is or what the reward is. You gonna quit already, coward? He says no and accepts. In the training field there are targets and straw dummies. He gets excited. It's weird, you can train up to level 200, but you can get rejected now. Still, it makes sense. A bad sniper puts the whole team at risk. He figures it's training to teach flexibility, not cracking under pressure. Holding the weapon properly, Lee thinks about restarting the quest but drops it. He's not quitting. Determined, he faces the field. The bearded man laughs, his nervous face is hilarious, and warns him if he fails, he'll never set foot there again. The wind blows. Lee estimates about 40 meters to the target, a normal distance for him. The evaluator offers 3 tests: speed, accuracy, or penetration. Fail, and it's over. He can ask for help beforehand. Lee thinks speed and accuracy are obvious, but he doesn't get penetration. He chooses accuracy, his strong suit. The bearded man grins. This is going to be fun. Lee raises his hand. How many people have passed? The man looks confused. Only 2. Lee's shocked with the game's assists. Only 2. And how many tried? The man adjusts his hat. I don't remember cowards and incompetence, but more than 1,000. Lee gets even more tense. 10 million players and only 2 passed? The evaluator starts walking across the field past the targets. Lee thinks the dummy next to him is the target. It isn't. He keeps walking farther, until he's near a stone wall. By Lee's estimate, 55 meters. Still doable. But there's no target. The man points. Stuck in the wall, a tiny blue feather. It used to be on his hat. Lee breaks into a cold sweat. Now he gets why almost nobody passes. In real life he shot farther, but at way bigger targets, trying to sound calm. Crazy that anyone can hit that. The bearded man is already behind him, sitting on a bench. You can start. Lee takes a deep breath. He can't back out. There's only one way. He activates the sync shift. A notification appears and lights wrap around Lee's hat. He tells it to crank the range up to the max. Another message. Accuracy guaranteed at 50%. He figures it depends on his senses now. New notification. Accuracy set to the highest possible. The system warns the change might affect gameplay. Accept the risks? Yes. Lights wash over his body. Testing his senses, everything looks sharper. He tosses around into the air and sets the musket on the ground. Tap loading? The bearded guy asks. Exactly. The old man says if this were a speed test he'd already have failed. Lee takes his shooting stance. 55 meters to a tiny target. You can barely even see the feather. He calms down. He can do it. He imagines it's a target 250 meters away. The evaluator watches. The kid's focused and gutsy. Lee locks in his aim. The feather gets clearer and clearer. Clear mind. The world around him disappears. Only the target matters. His finger squeezes the trigger. The shot rips through the air. The wind bursts around him. Lee holds his breath. He hit it. The bullet pins the feather and even chips the wall behind it. He celebrates inside. The evaluator's surprised. Nice shot. Lee's shocked the guy can see that far. He can barely see it himself. You're not gonna check. No time. The old man adjusts his hat, smiling even while calling him annoying. Notifications pop up. He passed the test. One of the top 3. Lots of bonuses, plus 40 reputation and a ton of agility. He's pumped, finally getting why the reward was secret. Quit dancing around and get in here already, the grump says. Lee runs in, excited. After that, the man pours an orange drink into a silver cup. You happy? Very. The man browless says the skill explains why he's so irritating. It was luck, Lee says. The bearded guy drops some Yoda-style wisdom. Luck doesn't follow the incompetent. Only the good ones get to walk with it. He drinks while Lee thinks. The achievement said Browless is one of the 3 best musketeers in the world. The old man explains boldness calms the mind, and a calm mind makes precise movements. A flash of the shot through the feather. He smiles. Maybe there's actually a brain in that head. He says if Lee had shown up earlier, he could have trained him to be one of the 3 musketeers. Lee thinks the name's weird, but lets it slide. You're still a diaper baby. Then the old man tosses him a blue bundle. Keep it. What is it? Ammo. Worth 10 silvers. Lee's surprised by the reward. Basic training's useless. What matters is skill. Lee thanks him. Browless tells him not to because it gets worse. He fixes his hat. We're going spider hunting. Lee gets the new quest and gets annoyed. No welcome party, just freelance work. Spider hunting won't give much XP at his level. There are bats in there too. There are. Why? He bargains. He wants to kill bats too. The old man thinks he's being cocky, but Lee insists. He knows the difference between confidence and arrogance, and he'll finish fast. Browburst thinks it over, then opens the door. Fine, you can take a few bats. Lee's thrilled. Then he asks a favor. If he clears the quest, he wants to learn a new skill. The old man's gaze hardens. Then he says, kill 30 spiders and 30 bats in 12 hours. Fail and you lose the rewards. Lee almost falls over. He doesn't even get a full day. He tries to negotiate. You backing out already? Lee gives a thumbs up. I'm going. He takes off running. He thinks it's like investing in the stock market. High risk, high reward. The bearded guy mutters to himself. The kid's entertaining. Lee runs non-stop. 3 hours to the forest and 3 more to get back. And it's not just killing. He has to collect 30 drops from each monster. Hunting 60 won't be easy, but the old man believes in him, so he'll pull it off. He passes a crowd looking for a party. No time. Straight to the west gate. Someone mentions teaming up for the watchtower. He stops. He's heard that name. He remembers the Ram sisters. Checks the map. It's past the Sentinel Mountains. Crazy far. He starts running again. That area must be the Fire Ram's territory, with help from the Ice one. He feels jealous. He promises himself he'll catch up to both of them soon. At night, he stops to catch his breath. He did 3 hours and 45 minutes. He thanks his boots and trusts he'll make it back at the same pace. He hears noise. Players are camping out, arguing about monsters. Spiders hide. During the day, they're faster. Bears are easier. He considers grouping up, but hears them say it's better to wait for sunrise. Bats sleep. 2 of them warn him it's dangerous to go alone. No time. He heads into the forest. The others start betting how long he'll last. 1 silver till dawn. 2 hours. 1 hour. He hears it all, annoyed but keeps going. Rude. He points his gun into the dark. Too late to back out now. Under the moon, he crouches between the trees, weapon loaded. He challenges himself. Reload in 63 seconds with his eyes closed. He wants to get better. He digs in his bag and pulls out a long torch. With light, it drops to 50. The torch flares to life. A grotesque spider drops right in front of him, screeching, while others twitch and stir in the light. He lowers the barrel. Bang. The red spider drops instantly. Another one nearby stays on alert. Silence. The two of them look like they're deciding what to do next. Lee reloads in a panic while the thing tries to run. It bolts, then a new shot hits it in the back. He exhales. Reloading really did get faster. The spider screeches. With his sensitivity turned up, everything feels even nastier. He almost feels bad for it. He checks the body. No items. Drop rate under 50%. Terrible. He cocks the gun again. He's still got more than 10 hours. Time to make the most of it. Back at camp, they think Lee's already dead and the bets are a lost cause. One guy suggests going into the forest to check. Another's scared of the monsters. The gray-haired one just wants a quick look, confirm the death and grab the money. He grins, thinking about the kid's expensive outfit. If he died, it probably dropped. He even considers using the others as human shields. The two companions are jumpy archers. He's a mage, so he makes 3 fireballs to light the way. Nothing shows up. No monsters. Weird, not even one, and there aren't any dropped items either. They decide to keep going. One archer points at something. Up ahead, there's a greenish lake bubbling and giving off smoke. Is that a swamp? They ask if this is some kind of sick joke. There wasn't any swamp there before, so why was that thing so disgusting? The mage realizes it's not a swamp, it's a pile of fluids from the remains of all the mobs that got killed. He drops to all fours and throws up, his stomach flipping. The archers yank him back. This isn't the time. They need to get out of there. A scream of agony cuts through the forest. The guys with bows tense up and tell the mage to get it together, because something's going on. One of the extras looks back after hearing weird noises and goes pale. A bunch of red eyes are watching the trio. One of them yells that it makes no sense for everything to be respawning at the same time, and one of the spiders leaps closer. The mage freezes. If the enemies are coming back all together, something's wrong. In seconds, they're surrounded by spiders and giant bats, and then they realize the main guy wiped all of them out in one go. Somewhere else, a hand grips the handle of a silver mug. It's browless, sitting alone at the Musketeer Academy, drinking and thinking time's running out. Suddenly something catches the bearded guy's attention. He turns on instinct. A moment later, he's got the barrel of his gun aimed at someone's back. Don't move. From another angle, you can see the grump pointing at the protagonist again without even realizing it, repeating the same old speech. He needs to keep quiet. Lee Ha turns to face him. So we have to go through all that again just because I left and came back? The old guy's eyes go wide when he recognizes who it is. How did this happen? Lee Ha drops a heavy cloth bundle on the floor, stuffed full. Here, everything you asked for. Spider legs, bat fangs, all of it. He smiles, acting like he didn't almost explode from stress doing the quest. And I brought extra too, just in case. The older guy opens it, checks, and just stares. You came back? Lee Ha frowns, kind of offended by the lack of faith. The head musketeer starts doing math in his head like that Nazare meme, trying to figure out how someone hunted more than 500 mobs in that time. He looks at the newbie's clueless face and thinks, no way. For that he would have had to shoot over 500 times without even breathing. Trying to hide his mental breakdown, he just mutters, impressive. A system notification pops up. Lee Ha reads it, quest complete. And he even got a bonus for doing more than required. That just makes it even crazier. The older guy grumbles that he doesn't know how many bullets got used, but at least it was good practice. Then he tosses Lee a silver coin. Another notification comes with it, a new skill. Excited, Lee Ha opens the message and starts reading. Now he can reload weapons with a 30-second reduction. The effect lasts 5 minutes and can be used every 6 hours. He closes the window and immediately goes, so what's the next task? The boss clears his throat. Before that, we need to talk about something. Like it's no big deal. He asks, how did you manage to hunt and bring all this back? Lee Ha blinks, not getting why that's even a question. The old guy breaks into a cold sweat. I did the math. This is impossible for a newbie. Did you steal these items? Take them from someone? Lee Ha smiles, almost a little wicked. You really want to know? He laces his fingers, rests his elbows on the table and takes a breath, getting ready to explain. I just combined the skills I had and tried to make something new out of it. Back in the forest, in the flashback, a red spider drops dead. A little bat is down too, leaning against a tree exhausted while more mobs get disintegrated. The protagonist admits it, this method is way too slow. He doesn't have any useful skill, no supersonic machine gun nonsense. Going one by one takes forever. And worse, the drops are a joke. 4 monsters just to get 1 item. He reviews what he's got. Calm mind, bayonet hit, and artillery. Still all 1 target at a time. He could try lining mobs up, sure, but he doesn't even know how many enemies the bullet can pierce. What he needs is simple, an AoE attack, and there has to be some clever way to get out of this mess. He realizes he's in a clearing where 5 paths cross, perfect for something with splash damage. He thinks of his Ice Witch friend and feels that little sting of jealousy. Mages probably have a bunch of attacks like that. A musketeer? At least at his level, nothing. But there was one cool thing back then. He remembers the Eagle quest, the gunpowder smoke. It wasn't a skill, but it worked. It even made wolves run off. He thinks when you don't have a skill, you make one. With this almost villain smile Maisa style, he decides to try it at least once. He starts prepping something with his hands, scanning around. Should work. And he makes a point of checking. No other players nearby. In his red cape, he positions himself near a cut tree trunk and rests his weapon on it, like he's about to kick off some ridiculous master plan. He exhales and stomps hard on the grass, uses that as momentum and launches forward. Target: a huge red spider, all mandibles. I'll start with you. A sharp leg rises, ready to slice. Lee Hack tracks the movement, steady. The spider swings, and he slides under the strike on his knees at the last second. He pops up in a jump and snaps into a spin, triggering bayonet hit. The tip of the musket slams into the mob's chest. Spider fluid sprays everywhere. The bayonet sticks, lodged in the exoskeleton. The spider lets out a horrible screech. Inside, he almost celebrates. Yeah. Scream more, and he takes off down the forest paths, dragging the screaming spider like it's some kind of horn. The forest wakes up. Suddenly, red spiders are crawling in from every direction, and giant bats too pissed because they got yanked out of sleep. Li Hao makes an aggressive move, pops the horn, and splashes liters of bright green liquid everywhere. That fluorescent color's gonna draw everyone in. And it does. The monsters chase him at full speed, and the noise wakes up even more monsters, who join the swarm, and off goes the shooter, running for his life with half the forest behind him. We see the whole forest chasing the kid, starving and losing it, and he's thinking one thing: if I trip, I'm done. There are way too many monsters right on him. A spider leaps and barely misses his head. Li Hao dodges by a hair. They're already catching up. Panic hits. He tries to lengthen his stride, but he can feel it. Like this, he's screwed. He grits his teeth and forces himself to think. Okay, there's still a way. He activates Quick Boots. That quest is way too important to fail. And then he sees it. He's reaching the spot. The same cut trunk. He grips the weapon with both hands. Finish line, just a little more. In one quick motion, he pivots and faces the trunk, putting it between him and the mob. He aims, finger on the trigger, and activates Calm Mind. His eye changes. His aim gets insanely sharp. The shot nails a tiny little point on top of the trunk. Sparks. Up close you can see it was a fuse, and that trunk was a gunpowder chest. The sparks race inside. 1 second later, boom, a massive explosion swallows the clearing. Spiders and bats get wiped out by the flames. From above, a crater rips open in the ground, burning. Columns of black smoke rise into the night sky. Lee Hatter backs away, safe, shielding his face from the smoke and the smell of burnt meat. Suit on his face, he gives a crooked little grin. Knew it. The crater turns into a full-on barbecue of spider and bat. He admits it blew up like a landmine. The blast radius was huge. This is more like an M18 Claymore. He rubs his hair, relieved he'd planted extra gunpowder in a few key spots and that he barely avoided getting caught in the blast. He grips his weapon tight and breathes. Worth it. He yells, celebrating. I did it. End of the flashback. We're back in Browless's room. The bearded guy stares at him, kind of in disbelief. So, all you did was make a bomb? Lee Hatta shrugs. Yep. He starts explaining what a Claymore mine is. It wasn't perfect, it was improvised, but it worked basically the same way. And luckily he had enough ammo and gear to hit the targets. Browless repeats slowly. Claymore. Like the kid just invented fire. He brings the cup to his lips again, watching the little glass of orange juice sparkle. You're something else. He sets the cup down on the table, grinning ear to ear. A pretty interesting newbie. Standing in front of the table covered in items, Lee Ha thanks him, kind of awkwardly. Browless raises a hand. Before you thank me, think about something. Lee Ha looks confused when he asks what that says about his performance, whether it was really something a musketeer would do. The bearded guy reminds him. This quest was supposed to make you a better shooter. Lee Ha nods. I know, and I practiced shooting a lot at the start. Browless narrows his eyes. Maybe you did, but don't try to play smart with me. Lee Ha swallows. Got it, I'll be more careful. Browless stands up from the table and adjusts his feathered hat. You still haven't answered my question. Lee Ha stays quiet for a moment when he repeats it. What's a musketeer's role? The kid shoots back, trying to be clever. Okay, but what do you mean by role? I'll give you an example. Browless crosses his arms. Remember that incident 2 decades ago? When the city got invaded by monsters? The Second War. Lee Ha recognizes it. He pulls up the lore he read on Middle-earth's page. An alliance of kingdoms against a legion of monsters. Big commanders on both sides. And in the end, it doesn't matter who you're fighting. The outcome always ends up in the hands of whoever commands better. A musketeer is just one piece in all that. Lee Ha looks up, steady. In a war like that, the musketeer's role is to be a sniper. Browless raises an eyebrow, and why do you think that? A boring explanation pops up. Human army hierarchy. Lee Ha sums it up. On the human side, if a general goes down, another one takes over immediately. The fight keeps going. But monsters? They usually don't have organization like that. So the best strategy is obvious. Take out their commanders. It creates instability, confusion, a power vacuum. Then we take advantage and hit them full force. Browless goes quiet, eyes half-lidded, thinking. He mutters, almost to himself. That's why I managed to create the Musketeer Academy. Lee Ha blinks, lost. What? Browless turns away, grabbing his coat. Don't worry about it, it's not important. A quest notification pops up in Lee Ha's system. From what I'm seeing, Browless says, there's nothing else I can teach you. But he still adds, I've got one more thing for you, besides the new quest. The mission says to take down a boss to gain affinity with Brow and fame in the kingdom. But then, out of nowhere, the objectives change. Lee Ha freezes. Huh, what do you mean? The new conditions show up, totally ridiculous. He can't go past level 30, he can't be defeated, and he can't hunt in a group. He freaks out. That makes no sense. You give it to me and then change it right after? And worse, he's level 25. Beating a level 30 boss solo is a group thing. While Lee Ha panics, Browless just drinks his orange juice. Totally chill. Lee Ha thinks, at his limit. Does this guy hate me? Browless stares at him like he's looking straight through him. When Lee Ha's basically accepting this quest as a death sentence, the old man goes, don't stress so much. Lee Ha stops. Browless keeps going. Calm. This is easy to solve with sniper skill. You just need to hit the boss right in the forehead. It was supposed to calm him down. But Lee Ha gets even more terrified. Easy? That's suicide. Still, something inside him tells him to accept. He swallows and steadies his voice. Okay, I accept. Browless breaks into a grin and lets out a Santa-like ho ho ho. Strikes a heroic pose. Then go. Complete your mission. Lee Ha shoots out the door running. Just like me, you and everyone else. Browless is dying to see how this ends. As Lee Ha runs, at least relieved the quest doesn't have a time limit. I can only think about how many hours this kid's been in the real world without taking a shower. He stops, breathing hard. Better get to level 29 before I start. His mind goes back to Browless. Founded the academy. That achievement about future musketeers. Who even is this guy? Lee Ha opens the system screen and decides to ask the other cocky nerd he knows, his cousin, Kaishang. He sends a message. Nothing. Sends another. Nothing. Weird. Maybe his favorite tank is out hunting. So he opens his friends list. Everyone in the guild is in Tanyu Gorge, wherever that is. Kei's probably with Sosuke, Tail, and Hyen. Lee Ha thinks hunting in a group really is the biggest reason to join a guild. And then he notices something insane. The two Ram sisters are in the same place too. You've got to be kidding. Cut. A place covered in rocks, basically a near desert. A notification pops up. The Ram sisters are escaping. A hand reaches out. They're going deeper into Tanyu Gorge. I need backup. Surround them both now. The red-haired mage says the allied guild is already on the way and tells Sosuke to send units to cut off their escape. The ninja vanishes instantly. The leader orders the healers to buff the assigned tanks. We're on it. Tanyu gets the job of tracking and keeping the girls on the radar. Easy, he says, taking off running. Hyen thinks to herself, there's no way they're getting out of there. Sosuke's gonna cover everything. They're gonna be trapped. On the other side, Kane leads a group of tanks and gets orders to make sure everyone's in position. The captain paces back and forth, nervous. We've got a ton of players over level 60. There's no way they get away. The redhead stares in the direction they fled. Obsessed. I'm gonna finish those two. I just need one more thing. He holds out his hand and starts this weird ritual. A purple magic circle forms around him. A pillar of light blasts up from the ground into the sky, like some spaceship cannon. Kim Hong yells, this'll block teleporting. Now they can't escape. But on the other side, a woman's hand rises. Another spell gets chanted. Blue hair. Zero fear. Attack. Kami charges toward a bright glow, and in the next moment, that glow turns into a swarm of razor-sharp ice needles, flying straight into the squad. A bunch of the extras get hit and start screaming that it hurts like hell, because no armor saves you from a mage. Kim Hong raises his huge shield and catches a massive ice spike, dropping to one knee behind it at the last second. In the freezing mist, Huijing's silhouette appears, ready to throw more. Kami grins, confident. It's been a while since the last time we saw each other. The Ice Ram sister appears in full, face-to-face with the tank everyone loves. The Knight's leader says the enemies are 70 meters out, and tells the tanks to keep their distance. Huijing, meanwhile, activates an Ice Spear spell and rains spears down on all of them. The Knight orders the group into a defensive formation and tells them to hold off the attacks as long as possible. Problem is, the magic barrage won't let a single Knight push forward. But then, suddenly, all the ice blows up into fire magic. The Knight's leader is still trying to figure out what's going on, but Huijing shows up, making it obvious who cast it. He gets pissed because they've already taken a lot of losses. But he tells the formation to go back to normal and warns everyone to avoid taking damage. All while saying it's fine because they suffered but managed to corner them. Still, the guy doesn't let his guard down because, looks aside, the blue-haired one is rank 9 in the world. He runs in knowing she's unpredictable, but right when it looks like they've got it, an ice wall seals off the passage. Seeing that, the Knight loses it and yells that he's not going to be stopped by that, so he starts smashing the wall and tells the others to help too. He even admits the girl's strong for pulling that off while running. Even so, he manages to break it because he's strong too. But the moment it shatters, the blue-haired girl is already there, waiting for him to come through. He doesn't get why she isn't running, but she starts chanting, and in a second, a cut appears on the guy's cheek. Everyone drops with multiple cuts, and he realizes his health bar is going down. Then he sees they're getting shredded by the little ice shards from the wall they broke, and having to admit again that she's amazing just makes him even more annoyed. From the hero's point of view, he complains that Kijang still hasn't shown any sign of life, but Lipa thinks he might be worrying for nothing. Still, he also thinks there's a chance his friends are fighting right now. And since he couldn't reach anyone, he's scared something bad might happen. At that same moment, in Tiwi Canyon, the two girls finally stop in a dead end. So someone says they can finally talk, and asks why the two of them keep running. The guy remembers the redhead sent a bunch of donations to Dale Castle, but Lipa thinks there's no reason to be so worried about some tiny castle. But the guy replies that if he were her, he'd be more careful with his words. Being the second biggest investor doesn't matter, because you won't get anything like the last one. Her putting that much money in there hurts the poorer people. Lipa thinks his Shifulta Canyons have content war money too. Anyway, the guy says again that it's unfair for them to use real-life money, instead of in-game money to get advantages in there. He thinks the two of them are show-offs, but Lipa thinks he's not getting it, because she sees it as an investment. Getting straight to the point, the redhead asks them to pay a fair price for the castle rights, but the girl refuses just to see what happens. So the redhead reminds them that in a game this realistic, people can do things way worse than just killing, and that seriously grosses both of them out. The girls don't want to play around anymore and get into formation, so the redhead's underlings move up in front of him. He's scared to death hiding behind the shields, and also embarrassed because he thought the blue-haired one was about to cast something. Wepa Thing says the 10 people sent to the escape route were defeated. The redhead doesn't think that's possible, because Wepa Thing's been standing there the whole time. Anyway, the blue-haired girl says there are only 44 people left. The redhead girl says that's less than she expected from the Koreans, but the redhead guy doesn't believe it. Either way, Hwayeon casts a fire spell called Fire Arrow, and shoots a bunch of them up into the sky. The redhead wonders why she did that. He already blocked teleportation, so nobody should be able to come. Sasuke's group was also guarding the other route, so he figures there's no way anyone can beat a level 200 black ninja. The guy says again that the girls should just accept the offer, but he also thinks it'd be good to make them feel what he's planning to do to them. So he tells his men to get ready to cast, but then he feels a chill that freezes him in place and makes him drop to his knees. The Shield Knight yells that it's a negative status effect. The healers get called over, but they can't do anything. Hwajeong wasn't supposed to be able to do that, but there were more people up on the cliff. And not just a few either. It looked like a whole army. The guy recognizes the flag at the top as the Golden Dragon guilds, but he doesn't get why they're there. Hwajeong's guild and Golden Dragon had fought before, but apparently the 3 Chinese guilds decided to work together. In both numbers and strength, Golden Dragon is the strongest in Asia, and with like 300 men up there, the redhead knows they're screwed. Then the martial artist from that guild greets the Koreans. It's Pei-woo, the world's 4th-ranked player. Right away the redhead goes pale with fear. All his teammates start whispering too. Looks like the fire arrows were a rescue signal, and while Hwajeong came in with money, Pei-woo showed up with power. But since both sides have something to gain, you could call it an alliance. The redhead has to think fast so he doesn't ruin everything. He asks Pei-woo what he's doing there, looking all dumb. But the martial artist says he's there to protect the 2 girls. The redhead asks what their relationship is, but Hwajeong says it doesn't matter, and gives him the option to run now and not start another fight over the castle. She says she'll let everything go, but if they try some cowardly threat like that again, they're gonna get smacked around. Hwajeong isn't stupid. He knows her backing off like that is going to look good to the public. But Pei-woo asks if the guy is really thinking it's worth being his enemy, because if he is, they'll use everything they've got to shred the Baidko guild into pieces. The redhead girl and the martial artist even find the idea funny. Saying it out loud affects Hwajeong's allies. Pei-woo puts the guy in a tough spot to answer, so he swallows his anger and is about to accept the offer. But then, out of nowhere, someone makes a huge noise when they get eliminated. Everyone looks up toward where it came from. It's a death announcement, but the red light isn't normal. Hwajeong thinks it's another one of the redhead girl's schemes, but from the look on her face he realizes she has no idea what's going on. Pei-woo tells the girls to pay attention. He tries to explain to Hwajeong that he is there, but since she doesn't really get it, she asks if he means the berserker. The berserker Agronmi Igor is the 3rd strongest ranker. He'd been thinking it was weird not running into anyone in the places he'd been hunting, but now it made sense. Anyway, in his beast form he uses a skill called Great Cross. Down below, Pei-woo gets worried because they couldn't stop the transformation. But since this twist is good for Hwajeong, he doesn't waste time and orders all his teammates to attack together, because they're going to kill the girls and then run away. Again, the hero gets upset because his message didn't get a reply. He wanted to ask about the brown bess but figures it's better to see if the NPCs can help. Leia heads to a tavern, thinking the NPCs there might have some info, and the moment he walks in, they really are gossiping about the insanity going down in Tiwi. They talk about all the rankers fighting, how 200 people died, and how a bunch of guilds are involved. Since they kept getting in Igor's way while he was trying to level up, he went after the Golden Dragons, and the Koreans got caught in the middle. Luckily, the hero sees Kijong is still logged in, but he's really worried. The problem is, right after that Sasuke logs off and out of nowhere a bunch of others log off too. So the hero decides he should log off as well and ask in person. When he steps out of his VR platform, he calls his friend and asks if he's okay. Kijong apologizes for not replying, but the hero wants to know what happened in the fight. So his friend says the world rankers are insanely strong on a scary level. He also says the protagonist needs to focus on leveling up if he doesn't want to get hurt. Then he says he's going to do that and hangs up. But that weird behavior just makes Leehi even more curious. He goes to watch a video on a forum and that death animation pops up right when the berserker showed up to fight. That crimson light appeared right before the players died, and Igor absorbed it with his power. It left everyone shocked and he charged in bloodthirsty before they could even run. Still, Pei-woo managed to save at least 2 of them, so the 2 rankers ended up face to face. Agromny asked who the kid was and whether he was going to get in his way. But then he noticed there was another fight happening down below. He saw the two girls and realized that's what the martial artist was focused on, so he immediately tried to go after their weak point. Agromny left the redhead not knowing what to do. Pei Wu yelled for them to get out of there. Then the blue-haired one shoved her friend back and activated a spell called Ice Forest. Huge ice trees shot up toward the berserker, but he got seriously pissed and dodged it, speeding up. That magic also messed with the Korean group, so they tried to break it, but the berserker got there first, and he scared everyone because it looked like he was trying to attack them too. There was an explosion on the side of the mountain, and when the dust settled, Agromny raised his sword at all the Asians. After a little joke about how they all look the same, the big wolf guy swings sideways to knock down the tree, but it only makes a small crack. He realizes he won't be able to break it in one hit, so he decides to wipe out the Koreans first. Kijung shouted for the tanks to protect the guildmaster and hold formation, but the wolf guy got there first and cut through everyone like it was nothing. He took down 2 in a single strike, and then his sword came in at an unbelievable speed, sending 2 more straight to the grave. After that he absorbed them like a vampire, but Pei Wu came flying in with a kick and sent the guy flying back. Everyone was stunned, but Igor was shaking with rage. Anyway, the martial artist raised his hands like he was calling him to fight, and the wolf guy flashed a super eager grin. After that they started trading blows head-on. The 3rd and 4th in the rankings were moving so fast you couldn't even see what was happening. That was the perfect time for the Koreans to run, but the ice tree magic was still there. A bunch of warriors were fighting off ice arrows, and they started taking even more losses, but one of them held on because he was really close. So before cutting down the girls, he apologized but told them to just die already. Pei Wu shouted, and the sword slash came in, but the guy was shocked when he saw his sword was stuck in some ice vines. It was a magic trap that tied him up with these thin little threads, and now Pei Wu was furious at the Koreans too, because he helped them against the berserker, and then they tried to kill his allies. Tal Hyung doesn't panic because he knows his Highlander class has more range, but having more range didn't mean anything against the 3rd-ranked player in the world. Kijung yelled, worried about his friend. The martial artist rushed in and said he was going to teach the kid what honor really means, but at the last second, a shield charge activated. The martial artist couldn't finish the kick because Kijung jumped in to save his teammate. He managed to block the hit, but he knew he wouldn't be able to block the next one, so he grabbed Tal Hyung and started running. Pei Wu was about to get them from behind, but the berserker showed up right on time. Tal Hyung wasn't waking up, so the blonde guy said he was going to go get help from the healers. He was about to bring them there, but it didn't take long for the martial artist to get taken down. And after he went down, Kijung looked at the berserker, pissed off because he didn't get much blood while they were talking up on the mountain. The big wolf guy says he needs to be fully topped up on blood. Kijung tells him to shut up, but the berserker smacks the shield away with a slap and then grabs the kid by the neck. The kid's basically screwed because he already used up all his defensive skills earlier. On top of that, the strength gap was huge, so since Igor needed blood, he just took it from the kid. That berserker Agromny Igor is a level 260 giant who can turn into a werewolf. When he transforms, his vitality drops, but he can drain life from monsters or other players. Meanwhile, the hero is only level 26, but Kijung is almost level 200, so he doesn't think he'll just die without doing anything. Kijung was the one who introduced the game to the protagonist when he was depressed about not being able to walk. He's a solid friend, so seeing him get killed that brutally makes the hero want revenge on Igor. Liha thinks he's about to grind levels like crazy now, because that's the only way he'll ever be able to go after that psycho. So, back on the platform, he's hoping Igor's ready for what's coming. Back to the fight in the ice forest. People are screaming in fear. The redhead is trying to find Pei Wu and complains that all of this is happening because of the berserker. Pei Wu had a chance in a one-on-one, so backing off was the best move. Hye Weon asked to leave, but her friend started casting an ice crystal spell. She didn't even pay her any attention, but then she apologized and also told her friend to die. As hard as that is, she agrees, as long as her teammate promises she'll wipe all of them out. That makes the blue-haired girl feel calmer about going through with it. The werewolf hears the noise behind him and immediately gets hyped to fight. The problem is the blue-haired girl is basically done with the casting. Hye Weon knows that if that magic goes off, everyone's going to die, but the redhead says it's already too late. So Hye Weon releases the power and it spreads through the air, freezing and killing all the players like it's nothing. And since she can't control it, it reaches the redhead too, who says she'll be back in 48 hours, then disappears. In Alestock shopping district, the hero made 4 gold selling the items he picked up the other day. The musket costs 3 gold, so he figures he'll keep leveling with the weapon he already has. Then suddenly someone calls out to him smiling, asking if he knows him. The protagonist says he doesn't, but the guy shows 2 shields which makes Lijha remember the warrior who used those at the bear hunting grounds. Not even pretending anymore, the guy accuses Lijha because of his gear of taking the items that drop from the players. The hero says he has no idea what he's talking about, and the guy yells that he's been looking everywhere for him and finally found him. Still, Lijha remembers how the guy asked to join the party, but when it was Lijha's turn to ask for help, they straight up ignored him. While the shield guy was running off with the survivors, the hero fought the bear and his gear was proof of that. Lijha says the guy needs proof to accuse him, So the guy admits the kid beat the bear, but tells him to give back the player's items. The hero says he doesn't even know where they are, and the guy snaps, pissed, that when a veteran asks, a noob obeys. So Lichar loses patience and tells him to stop being so damn annoying. Because he got called out, the guy yells that the hero doesn't know the power of his guild. But Lichar doesn't care, and says if he keeps messing with him, he'll call the Holy Knights. They're not actually his friends, but getting them to come over there wouldn't be that hard. The shield guy tries to stop him, but Lichar runs so fast he can't catch up, and eventually the guy gets tired. Without the bonus, you'd need to max out dexterity from level 47 just to be able to catch him. The problem is, the berserker who killed his friend is at a level 10 times higher than his, so the priority is leveling up, and to do that, the hero takes off running toward Mount Shaymore. Near the place, a bunch of people are trying to network so they can form a party and go farming, but they only recruit players level 40 and up. Lichar to figure out where he's supposed to find the kobold boss, and he thinks Brown Bess was crazy for telling him to beat the strongest boss before level 30. He figures he should hit level 29 first, but then he hears someone recruiting a DPS, saying they've got a cute kitty healer, and from the sound of it, that person is talking to the hero. A huge guy shows up and says, judging by his weapon, the protagonist is a ranged DPS. He asks what level the kid is to join the group, so Liha lies and says he's 41, which is perfect. So Liha realizes this guy is the tank, but he gets straight to the point and asks about the cute kitty healer. The guy calls Hana-chan out from the crowd and she comes over, introducing herself in an adorable way. Liha thinks it's cool that she's a nun-type class and she seems polite, and then the tank jokes like, see, I wasn't lying. Since the only girls he's met so far were either super nervous or ice cold, this one seems nice. Anyway, the tank introduces himself as Matsuhige. He's level 42 and she's level 40. Then the musketeer introduces himself, they form the party and head out right away toward the peak without wasting time. In the bushes, all of a sudden Matsuhige tells everyone to stop. He says that at 10 o'clock there are 2 kobold workers up ahead, so they decide it's better to go around them. But Leo wants XP instead of playing it safe, so he asks if none of them know how musketeers fight, and he asks if it wouldn't be better to practice teamwork before climbing the mountain. The problem is it takes too long for him to explain, so he just lies down and says he can shoot from about 50 meters away. Unfortunately, the gun's range is shorter than a bow's, but saying that would be kinda rude, so Matsuhige apologizes. That's one of the reasons musketeers aren't very popular. The tank says he'll carry the group, but the hero doesn't get mad about being underestimated, he just pulls the trigger, shocking everyone. He apologizes because the shot was insanely loud, but Matsuhige doesn't care, and asks the nun if she's ever seen anything like that. The protagonist straight up killed a kobold worker with a single shot, so Matsuhige asks if the kid is really level 41, he basically catches him in the lie. But he asks because he thinks Liha might be a smurf. The kitty healer also looks like she just saw a superhero. Then they talk about how smurfs are high-level players who pretend to be bad. And even though the protagonist denies it, the two of them get excited, hoping to get carried a bit. After a while exploring past those bushes, a mountain worm shows up. It bursts out of the ground, smashing everything with these nasty teeth, and goes straight for the hero. The healer uses her divine protection so the attack doesn't hit him, and Liha finishes the teamwork combo by shooting the monster right in the middle of its mouth. The thing goes down, but Liha doesn't get why they keep focusing him, or how Matsuhige knew it was going to appear. So after the fight, he asks to talk to the knight for a minute. Matsuhige is a tank class player, but he isn't using a taunt skill. Usually taunt might not work, but either he can't make monsters focus him, or he was trying to let Liha die. Matsuhige yells that he's not that kind of guy, so the protagonist asks why he didn't use his skills. Turns out the kid doesn't have many class skills. Knights aren't pure tanks, so they don't have taunt. He only has one called strike, which can sometimes grab aggro, but Matsuhige has one that lets him take damage in place of a teammate, called cavalry. The problem is that skill only protects women, because of the knight's code, so the only useful skill is strike, and the hero says he'll do what he can, but at least now he doesn't have to feel bad about taking a while to reload. After walking a bit farther, the group reaches a huge tribe like at least 100 houses. They say the bigger the group, the easier it is for them to fall apart once they lose their leader. Inside the cave there's an old mine that works like a storage area and a nursery. It's a great place to hunt, but a terrible place to shoot. There are enemies everywhere, so the protagonist thinks it's best to look around for a good vantage point, and he takes off running because it's hunting time. Matsugi starts off by slashing one of them with his sword and immediately goes in to finish the second. When he takes the second one down, 2 of them jump over him aiming for his head, but the healer casts a protection spell that boosts the knight's shield. So he manages to knock both of them back and yells for the hero to shoot the one on the right. But the main guy figures he won't even need to, because right when the 2 monsters jumped and the knight was about to use his strike to focus on one of them, the hero's shot rips straight through both of them. Lihera basically kills 2 birds with 1 stone, then tells them to head west to take out more monsters. The hero explains to the healer that the weapon can pierce targets, and also says it helped that they were standing close together. Since one of the monsters doesn't die right away, the main guy asks the knight for a rope and explains that these little guys are smart enough to form a tribe. They tie up the kobold and manage to communicate with it. The monster begs to be killed, but the hero does something worse. He starts tickling the little guy until it answers his questions. It works because it's torture, but you can't pass out or die from it. So he asks where the boss is, but the monster just keeps repeating the same line. So he grabs his musket and says he can just interrogate a different monster if it won't help. Honestly, the boss wouldn't show up unless something special was going on, so Lee wants to know what that is. That special thing is a crisis in the tribe, but the monster says humans wouldn't understand and yells that it's a noble. Anyway, the main guy finishes it off, kind of getting how things work now. The kid's teammates say the boss lives inside the mine, but nobody's been able to kill it. Everyone basically assumes they won't be able to either, but the main guy thinks it over, and he figures the boss is a monster that only appears when some special condition is met. Like there has to be a crisis in the tribe and a human who won't leave, or something like that. And when you add in the word sniper that Brown Bess gave him, Lee starts to piece it together. He asks if the other two have ever gone deep into the tribe's territory and says he wants to go in there at least once. There are tons of them in the tribe, so for the three of them it's safer to just hunt around the edges. So a good idea would be to recruit a few more people, but Lee still wants to keep hunting while they wait. After a while fighting, he hits level 27. His friends are impressed. The healer says she wants to go for the boss now. And when she says the main guy is really strong, he doesn't even know how to back out of it. Suddenly the knight spots some players heading toward the tribe. He can tell a bunch of them are from the same guild, because of a symbol on their capes. But the main guy recognizes the emblem from the shield guy and realizes he's screwed. The moment the guy sees him, he starts yelling. He says the kid can't run, and points for his buddy Hyungnam to come over and teach him a lesson. The hood along with the shoes and coat are part of the Agony Bear set, so if they beat him he'll drop the items and the shield guy says he's gonna hand them out to his friends. But Lee still can't believe that many people showed up just to kill him. Hyungnam looks like the highest level, and even if Kim is weak, the others are level 40 and up. Kim yells at the two of them to hand over the hero, saying he's a thief. He says if they die, the kid will straight up steal their items right in front of them. So before things get worse, he tells them to cooperate. The kid's partners don't think he's that kind of person, but Lee doesn't want to drag them into trouble, so he just thanks them for everything and asks what they want him to do now. Kim wants everything he's got, or else Hyungnam says they'll kill him over and over until he's back to level 5. The Chaos Index is a penalty point you get when you attack another player outside of PvP. When it goes up, your reputation drops, so the main guy thinks it's better to provoke them first. He calls them cowardly bandits, and Hyungnam almost loses it with him. So yeah, everyone moves in to surround the main guy. His companions don't think he'll actually fight, but the knight expects the worst and grabs the girl to run. And as they're sprinting away, Lee tells them he'll meet up with them later. Hyungnam gets furious that Lee acting like he's the big shot, so one of his mage underlings casts a dark spell called Nightmare. The player Kushner is marked as an enemy, and the system warns that chaos doesn't go up when they attack him first. So now the main character thinks he can fight without worrying. They attacked first, and the dark mage summoned a monster with necromancer magic. It was a giant skeletal horse that screamed and whipped up a gust of wind. It's the same thing the hero felt before, an effect called fear. So the mage says a low-level noob won't even be able to move. Hyungnam thinks that if he grabs the guy's items and shows them to his superiors, he'll get promoted. Then he'll have a better team and fix his reputation. Hyungnam tells the others to rush him, but not to kill him yet because he wants to beat him up first. But out of nowhere, one of their allies drops from a perfectly placed shot. Hyungnam freezes, and that skeletal horse disappears. Then the hero mocks them, because thanks to the Agony Bear set, he can resist the fear effect. He uses the precise hand skill, which lowers cooldown time, and starts running. The archers immediately try to shoot, but the protagonist fires first. Hyungnam screams for the tanks to protect him. He thought the kid was a noob, but he just took down 2 level 50 players. Even Hyungnam couldn't do that, so he tells everyone to chase him so the hero can't get away. Kim was about to warn them that Lee takes time to shoot, but again, another ally drops to the ground defeated. Now the guy gets scared, and the boss comes down on him. Hyungnam tells them to keep chasing, but since 3 people have already died because of Kim, he says if anything goes wrong, they're blaming him. Then he tells Kim to come along too. The problem is the hero heads into kobold territory, but Hyungnam doesn't care. From up on the mountain, the hero's teammates think he's insane, in a good way. They were going to help, but it looks like he doesn't need it. Plus, there wasn't much they could do anyway. But with what he'd prepared, the knight said he could wipe them all out. The guy explains he got something to use in case she was in danger. For now, they had nothing to do with the kid's problem, but they figured it was smart to follow him. Then Hana asks if Leah is also a threat, and her teammate doesn't even hesitate to say yes. When another kobold shows up, they kill it fast. One of the underlings complains it's annoying how they keep popping up. He says when they catch the hero, they'll make him regret it. They're still searching for the kid. Then they start talking about an A-rank dagger that dropped. Nobody liked the boss's orders, even with the promise of loot, but the boss himself was listening to everything. Hannam asks if they've got a problem following his orders, and says the new generation is soft. Then he asks if he's right or wrong, but just hearing the hero makes him mad. He's sick of the whole always say yes to the veterans thing, so he lands a clean shot. The bullet hits the old dude right in the leg. He screams in pain, but at least he spots the hero up in a tree. Lihul messed up by not ending the fight with a single shot. A Sunrise Guild announcement pops up, so the hero learns their name and thinks it's trash. Once again, the shield guys form up in front of the old man, and the damage dealers line up front. But they're getting irritated because Hyungnam keeps giving orders from hiding. The hero yells that whoever moves first is getting shot, and uses that time to figure out how to escape. Precise Hand isn't ready yet, and there aren't many kobolds around to hide behind. Then, by pure luck, a bell suddenly rings, and a giant foot appears right next to them. It's the tribe boss monster, Haijut Han, the one they were looking for. But the protagonist can't believe they're even the same species. All the kobolds in the tribe get 10% stronger just from being near the boss. He goes into a rage and hits everyone with the fear effect. Libby resists thanks to the Agony Bear set, and only gets a little shaken. But Haijunaim is way more terrified, especially when the boss asks if he's the enemy. The old guy begs the boss to listen, and it turns out the monster can talk. Haijunaim says they're only chasing a human, and they'll leave if he lets them. But Haijut Han asks who killed the monsters back there, and he knows it wasn't the shooter, because their wounds weren't from bullets. And since humans always lie, he says he won't ignore them anymore, and slices one of them in half. The kobolds start attacking, so the players start taking out the weaker ones. One shield user says he's going to use taunt, but gets cut down the moment he tries. Haijut Han just one-shot a level 50 tank. Everyone starts freaking out, and Haijut Han tells Kim to do something, since he's got 2 shields. So Kim turns on his high guard and charges in, all confident. But in the next instant, the monster leaves the guy with nothing but a stump. He screams in pain and drops to his knees, which gives the boss the opening to finish him off. Even the main character wasn't expecting that, but at least he figures out the crisis happens when you kill a bunch of kobolds and don't leave. Liha figures the enemies are around level 60, so Haijut Han really is insanely strong. The boss is about to kill the human leader, so the leader yells that there's still a hidden shooter. He says he'll spare him if he helps, but the hero doesn't say a word because he doesn't want to be spotted. Haijut Han keeps drawing attention, but Liha knows it's still too soon to tell where he is. If he can't kill it with one shot, he's dead, and there are still other kobolds too. So if he shoots, he's basically dead either way. Liha decides it's better to slip away. The monster tells the guy to never set foot there again. The guy turns around pissed off, tells him to go to hell, and says if he dies it'll cause problems. But the intimidation doesn't work. His leg goes flying and he screams in pain. Hyungnim hits the ground, he can't even crawl, so he says if he survives he won't come back. But the monster doesn't buy it and slices him in half, making the hero break out in a cold sweat. All the Sunrise guys got wiped out, but they ended up drawing in every monster. Even if there were people in the village, there was no way they could help. The boss orders his underlings to find the human. They start spreading out, and that's the protagonist's only hope. Haijut Han is on a whole different level from the others. Just being near him gives you chills. Then the monster catches the human scent nearby and seems to spot the protagonist up in the tree. As it gets closer, the hero thinks about taking the shot. He calms himself down because things are tense, controls his breathing, and aims for the head, but their eyes meet, and the boss yells to the guards that he found the human. It's too late for the protagonist to shoot, but weirdly, the boss just tells them to protect the entrance. The hero has no idea what's going on, but he uses the chance to move somewhere else. He doesn't know who's at the entrance. He's grateful to whoever distracted the monsters, but he's thinking the boss's head is going to be his. The people running at the gate were the protagonist's teammates. They got curious and went to check out the boss. They saw Haijut Han had destroyed Sunrise, and they were stunned. Machuhuga wonders if the hero really managed to summon the boss with just those clues, but then he panics because Hana yells that she's out of stamina. With the danger closing in, he uses what he prepared, a wall of fire, which kills a bunch of the boss's underlings. Then he grabs the girl, saying they just need to run a little farther. Unlike the smaller ones, the boss can push through the wall. Machuhuga yells they're almost there, takes the girl's hand, and activates his trump spell, Return. But right as they're about to disappear, the monster gets hit and drops to its knees, so the two of them get away without really understanding what just happened. A few minutes earlier, the hero had reached the kobold's watchtower. Thanks to fire magic, he could judge the distance. There wasn't much wind and it was only 150 meters. The problem was the monster kept moving away, but even at 180 meters it was still in range. So the protagonist fired at the boss with everything he had. When he shot, the bullet nailed the monster right in the head. It hit the ground and all the kobolds rushed over to help the boss. The hero levels up 4 times from the kill, and he yells, celebrating, like, now that's what I'm talking about. Since he beat the boss, the kobolds get a 50% debuff for an hour. Most of them are level 20, and all the loot is left behind. On top of that, the protagonist gets an achievement for defeating a monster from the Demon War, and another for doing it with a single shot. His dexterity goes up, and he gets into the Hall of Fame. But the description sounds kind of serious. It seems like from that level onward, players find it hard to take down a boss, but he figures the top world rankers could probably kill one of these easily too. Without the Just Death and PvP Master achievements, it would have been impossible. Liha used 20 points from the PvP achievements on dexterity before shooting, so now it's time to hunt. After a while, the kid reaches level 32. It was smooth, since the kobolds were weakened. Anyway, he stops hunting and realizes he's got 35 points to spend. He has no idea where to put them, and it feels like things are getting more complicated. Musketeers don't just attack from far away, they fight up close sometimes too. Still, since he should focus on shooting, he puts 30 into dexterity, thinking he'll be fine if he keeps doing that up to level 63. And he figures that before long he'll be able to catch up to the berserker. It's time to head back to Alestock. The kid needs to either turn in or sell his stuff, and he complains the rewards are pretty lame. One of them is literally just an invitation to the grand opening of the Holy Grail. But honestly, that's pretty normal for a medieval land. After a while, a red-haired girl starts complaining because her sister still hasn't come looking for her. She got the same letter as last time, so she thinks either they pulled a blank ticket, or the winner was the same person again. Since he's in town, the hero decides to check his items. He'd been so busy hunting, he didn't even look properly. In the middle of everything, he finds an epic protection ring that creates a force barrier. It blocks hostile entities and absorbs attacks like a second life. But he's also got a bone necklace from the boss, and the boss's crescent spear. What the protagonist can actually use is the necklace, which gives good effects like 10% crit. He wanted the set bonus, but he accepts what he's got and decides to move on to the next step, finishing the quest. At the door, the hero thinks his academy has the most rundown building of them all. He complains a lot about it and announces he's back, but gunshots come from inside. Lee grabs his weapon right away, looks like there's an intruder fighting and about to cause a scene. Another shot goes off and then the guy starts screaming in pain. He says he's leaving, but he'll get revenge, because the other guy isn't a war hero anymore. Turns out the one who fired those 3 shots was Old Man Brown, and the speed totally blew Leemy's mind. After that, the old man greets Leemy, but Leemy can only think about how it took him 20 seconds to fire 3 times. That was insanely fast with a single gun, and then he just went and hung the musket back on the wall. Leemy figures if the first bullet is already loaded, it takes 10 seconds, and if it isn't, it takes 7. But not even an auto-reloading rifle shoots that fast, only bolt-action ones can. So if the hero could copy how that rifle works, he'd become the strongest guy in this medieval world. The wall rack holding 3 weapons reminds him of the 3 musketeers. Brown apologizes for the ugly scene. He says the Holy Knights came by the other day, saying Hydruik Kazmena had disappeared. So Leemy says he took care of him, which makes Brown praise him, and the hidden potential mission gets completed. He'd exceeded every expectation, so he hits 100% familiarity with the old man. Now Brown thinks it's a waste of time to send the kid to collect bear guts, and even though Leemy's basically a professional suck-up, the old man says there are more important things. Before that, the kid asks about the musket's rapid firing, but Brown says if Leemy thought it was fast, he's gonna start calling him kid again. Leemy tries to explain it with magic, but the old man's like, magic my ass, so it has to be something in the musket. There's a pause right after he says that, and Leemy thinks there has to be a clue in the conversation. Remembering the 3 Musketeers achievement, he asks if the black musket has something to do with the founders. Then the old man slams the table, asking if the kid knows anything about that. Leemy manages to hit the keyword, and brings up Bess, Brown, and Elizabeth. That's where the academy's name comes from. Because of those 3, it used to be packed with newbies. People lined up to shoot at the range. But those 2 friends were different from the others, so the hero asks where they are. He's told they disappeared during the war. But Brown says he'll trust Leha now. The 3 of them fought in the Battle of the Marching Fields, but only Brown came back, so he wants to find out what happened to them. Looking for the lost legends becomes the protagonist's new mission. At first, the quest seems pretty easy. If they disappeared, they're probably alive somewhere. Even if he does nothing, the mission will fail, so the hero agrees to try. He asks if he can look for the 2 founders, because it's better than giving up. Then the man says Elizabeth would have thought Leha was pretty cool, and he agrees to let him try. In the Battle of the Marching Fields, the missing 2 went off to find the best shooting spots, while Brown left with the Fibiel Minute Alliance. It's tough because those are the only clues the hero has. 20 days in Middle-earth is 4 in real life, but the main thing is that 2 people actually completed the mission. The main character goes to get info from the merchant and ends up having to sell some armor. At least his haggling skill leveled up. At the weapon shop, our hero asks the clerk about the missing people, but the story the guy heard was that both of them were dead, except he remembers that wasn't the original version. The hero asks him to explain properly, so the guy leans in and whispers it in his ear. Leha jumps in surprise because it's the most detailed and ridiculous thing he's heard so far, so he doesn't buy it. But the NPC says it's basically a miracle the humans won in a way that sounds so serious it almost feels real. The merchant says he can't guarantee anything, but everyone who reacted like the hero did got beaten up by the director. Leha asks where the story came from and hears it was from a witness of the war. But the guy will only give the name if Leha buys something, and he's already set aside an 18 gold musket. The hero looks and sees the first option sucks, but the second one seems decent for his level, so he picks the needle rifle as his new musket. But after that he uses his haggling skill to ask for a better price. In the end he saves 70 silvers in the negotiation. More importantly, the seller says the witness lives in Nitai, near the marching fields, which is a solid lead. When he goes to buy a ticket, a girl says it costs 80 silvers more than what he just saved. But since he doesn't really have a choice, he uses teleport to get there. Then another girl greets him and welcomes him. The hero is looking for a one-armed veteran, and the first thing he runs into is kids messing with a beggar, and the beggar chases after the little brats, yelling for his sword back. Leto figures he might be able to pick up a quest if he helps with the kids, so he thinks about coming back later. Even though he notices that, for some reason the guy only showed one of his hands. The hero goes to the tavern first, but inside he's the only one smiling. Even the receptionist looks like someone you really don't want to mess with. There are so many aggressive people that the hero can't find out anything. He goes around town asking about Lepanto, but nothing useful comes up, which means he'll have to search without any real info. He just knows Lepanto was a guy who used a rapier, the same guy who spread the rumor that the musketeers betrayed the humans. According to the weapons seller, the two of them went to the demon's camp. If that's true, the director won't believe it. So since he's short on time, he needs to hit the rest of the shops today. Some people don't know Lepanto, others don't know where he lives, or they give useless answers. So the hero starts losing it, because this guy is supposed to be a celebrity. An NPC who uses a rapier is rare, so someone should at least know what he's like. Anyway, the hero keeps checking more places, but then the same beggar from earlier jumps out and asks if he wants to play some war games. Lena says maybe next time, but the guy won't drop it. Then the kid realizes that even though his sync is at 50%, he didn't notice this spaced-out NPC coming up. The hero thinks for a second and asks about the man's missing left arm. And even without the guy answering, he realizes he's found Lepanto. The beggar yells for his squire to go deliver the blade, or rather deliver the rapier. But he looks like a total lunatic doing lunatic stuff. Lol wants to see if the story is true, so he says he has a few questions. But the beggar takes off running, ranting about war. The hero tries to keep up and the beggar is way faster, which proves he's not normal. So to keep him from getting away, Lol shouts that it's about the musketeers. Lepanto finally pays attention but tells the hero to run because if he stands still, Lord Brown is going to shoot him. Obviously the main character has no idea what that means, but the beggar keeps running, also talking about Elizabeth. He definitely knows something, but then he suddenly starts crying, begging Brown not to abandon them. Looks like Lepanto has really severe PTSD. The hero learned a bit about that when he was in the military, because it happened a lot. So since Lepanto is still stuck in the war in his head, he decides to try a different approach. At Hollygrill Castle, with a level 5 cooking skill, the hunter lures the prey with the smell. Lepanto falls for the bait like a little duck, so the hero tries to start a conversation, but the beggar acts like he doesn't even hear him. He shows up talking about how he's got enemies all over the place that they need to deal with. He also says his squire is a great cook and that they need to head to battle. Laha plays along saying it's dangerous and they'll need Brown and Elizabeth. But the moment he hears those names, he says it's not happening. They were the ones who said they'd become enemies. When he exposed the betrayal, he got punished because they couldn't let the people find out the hero's dirty secrets. Looks like Lepanto was the last person to talk to them, but again he ran off. This time the hero wants to know where he's going, and a new quest pops up asking them to escort the veteran. All he has to do is find his sword, but if he can't, Lepanto will die, and Laha will get penalized. Following the beggar, they end up at the border of the kingdom of Fibiul. The place is basically an empty field crawling with monsters. Lepanto says it's full of cursed trees and dark fairies, and the hero goes in to fight them without even knowing their level. The smart move would be to go around, but the beggar yells that he's going to bring divine punishment down on them. Then he takes off running, yelling for the squire to bring the sword. Lepanto looks for it, but can't find it. So the protagonist draws the monster's attention, thinking he can't just let the old beggar die. He uses the precise hand technique and tries to pop the big one first, but it only leaves a regular hole in its stomach. The hero's power isn't enough, and even with more monsters coming at him, he grabs the old guy and bolts. After reloading the musket, he focuses on the smaller ones. He takes one down, then stabs another with the bayonet blade. At least the little one dies in a single hit. And since the cursed trees were slow, he just kept shooting bit by bit until it was over, and the beggar starts praising his squire. Lepanto keeps rambling, but the hero gets annoyed because he just burned a skill with a 6-hour cooldown. He tells the beggar to shut up and says it'll be easier to destroy the Demon King's fragment if they sneak in. But after the two finally get on the same page, a humanoid lizard recognizes the protagonist. It's Bayeminim, and the guy explains he's only there to do a bit of hunting. Hunting in a place that dangerous makes the hero think it must give a ton of XP, and now he wants to know how the lizard can handle it. The beggar can't believe the squire has a lizard friend. Problem is, Bayemi's academy isn't nearby, and the lizard is alone. They say they've both gotten way stronger since last time, and Bayemi recognizes Lihei's gear, so the hero wants to know how he knows that. Lihei suggests they form a party. The lizard says he's busy, but since he's curious, he agrees to come along. Lepanto yells that his army is growing, so Lihei explains he's just an NPC with issues. Up ahead there are more enemies like before. The lizard tells the hero to get ready and focus only on the cursed tree. The fairies mock him because he's a lizard, but he puffs up and breathes poisonous gas on them, killing them all instantly. Then he signals the protagonist, who shoots the cursed tree. At the same time, Bayemi uses his poisonous spit, punching a bunch of holes in the enemy, and they take it down. The Yaha realizes the poisonous spit hits harder than his shots, and is seriously impressed. After the fight, they rest a bit to wait out their skill cooldowns, but Bayemi can't sit still. Since the hero hit level 33 there, it's pretty clear the area isn't meant for anyone under level 40. So the hero asks the lizard's level, and he says he's already 51. Liaha can't believe it, but Bayemi says leveling is just about knowing where and how to hunt. First they need to finish the quest, but Lepanto yells that his comrades are buried there and that he led the front lines in the war. Then he runs off, thinking his weapon is nearby. The hero thinks the beggar got his memory back, but the problem is that up ahead there are tons of undead monsters. Either way, it seems like he knows what he's doing, so the quest must be close to the end. Lepanto says he can see the sword buried in the same camp the two of them left from. Bayemi nails it by asking if this is a musketeer-class quest, and Lepanto starts freaking out because he doesn't know if it's happening right now or if it already happened. The beggar's non-stop chatter is driving them crazy, but then the ground starts glowing purple and a zombie crawls out. That's exactly why they didn't want him yelling. Lepanto shoots the first undead, then says he'll handle the skeletons while his friend takes care of the rest, and he also gives the lizard a tip: focus on cutting off their legs. A zombie runs after the hero, and he starts freaking out because he's out of ammo, but he goes in with a bayonet charge because he can't afford to miss. Finally, the kid takes down the last one, and the lizard finishes his side too. The problem is, a group shows up saying they finally managed to find the gecko, and once again their symbol is from the Rising Sun Guild. The lizard tells the protagonist to run while there's still time, but he has to take the NPC with him, and he also has debts with those guys. Anyway, Bayemi says they're not getting out of this peacefully, so they split up roles. The guild members don't even care because of the chaos index, and one of them gets shot immediately, which makes everyone panic because it was the boss. Bayemi spits venom all over a bunch of their arms, and then a level 60 guy comes in with a sword, and the hero gets nervous because he won't be able to create distance with the beggar there. One of them tries to go after the shooter, so the hero uses the bayonet attack, but the guy's stronger than the monsters. Another one comes in to deal with the beggar too, and it looks like the protagonist failed the mission. But then Lepanto steps out of the dust asking who they are. Liha yells that they're enemies, and when a bald guy jumps in to cut him down, the beggar answers with a simple move called coup draw. Everyone starts freaking out trying to take out the beggar first, but Lepanto says those attacks are a joke compared to the demon army, and he sends a bunch of them straight to the grave using all kinds of martial techniques. Even without his rapier, he takes them all out in a single strike, so even Liha can't believe he's just a quest NPC. Even so, the man kneels down, thanking our hero. He says that without his help he would have died like some hated lunatic, with no memories, and about his rapier he would have lost it forever, because all he had to do was summon it. The mission to escort the war veteran is completed, so Liha's reputation in the kingdom goes up. And what Liha wanted to know, Lepanto now explains as memory modification. The reason he got hit by that spell was because of them, and the one who cast it was the military advisor Mage Rotsak, the current archmage of the kingdom of Fibiel. Even so, the battle records are in the royal archives, but nobody except the king can see them. The problem is, the hero can't just go there and ask, and he can't come back without proof either. So Lepanto apologizes, but says the spell is basically a way to get rid of people without getting your hands dirty. He can't go to the capital or even stay in the kingdom, because if Rotsak finds out, the knights will be punished. But at least he hands over a coin, saying it's proof enough to show he's alive. Then he says he's going after those two and thanks the hero again for the help. Bayemi thanks him too, and since Liha is going back to the capital, the lizard tells him to get strong soon. The hero's just confused that he's getting valuable info for free, so the lizard says he sees potential in him, and that he'll need him someday too. Basically, it's an investment in a player like in Jijing, who's already level 23. Anyway, they say goodbye, but next time Liha tells Bayemi he doesn't need to hide the dagger he took from the Rising Sun. Liha completes one quest for defeating an evil player, and another for surviving against someone stronger. He earned 22 points, but the real challenge was about to start now. Liha calms down thinking he'll try first, but when he opens the door he almost gets shot. Brown doesn't believe any of it and says the hero better be able to back up that accusation of betrayal. The first thing Liha does is hand over the coin, and the old man realizes Lepanto is still alive. They say it's a tracking coin that identifies the owner by mana, prevents friendly fire, and helps with missions. And this one belongs to a knight from the third company. But Brown goes back to the protagonist's story and asks if Rotsak was behind all of it. He starts putting some things together, and asks if the kid has time that night to go out for a walk. So the quest Lost Legends changes into Liha helping the old man get a look at the royal archives. But if he can't pull it off and make it out alive, he'll still lose 50% familiarity across the whole kingdom. The hero suggests the old man go alone, since he doesn't have permission to enter, but if they hid things from Brown, then even he doesn't. The only option is to pick someone he trusts to bring the records back, so the hero agrees to try. No, Brown gets welcomed at the castle and goes in using the excuse that he wants to do business with the Magic Corporation with his assistant. Liha was warned to only visit the West Wing after going through the East Wing, because one wrong step can get you killed. They also have to leave the area at 9 o'clock and meet up, so the two of them head to a glowing stone. The old man says they've only got one shot and it starts glowing even brighter. Then the signal is given, and Liha hides behind a vase. Right away the head scribe Clark shows up, happy to see an old colleague again. Skipping the formalities, Clark asks what Brown is doing there, because if it were anyone else, he wouldn't even have answered them. The old man says he just came to visit. Clark is pleased, but warns that the shooter can't touch anything. He also says the visit feels weird, because Brown isn't anyone important. He's super suspicious, like, he thinks the old man has someone hidden behind a vase, but then he gets embarrassed when he doesn't find anything, and changes the subject, saying it's actually pretty nice being head scribe. In the middle of the conversation, Liha manages to run to the stairs, like they planned. Problem is, the steps never end and start curving, until the hero ends up in this magical space. He can feel the floor, but he thinks the old man should have warned him, because he has no idea how he's supposed to find the records in just 2 hours. On the shelves, only one section is glowing, and it has continental maps and settlement reports. Lee-ha figures the glow is an obvious hint and starts flipping through the books. The first one he opens is a continental map of regions that were explored and recorded. It lists monster types and levels, like a strategy guide. All of it was written by a guy named Fernand, who must be the adventurer king. But then he finds something called exploration plan for a new continent, which turns into a mission to bring the guy back to the kingdom. Looking at the rewards, it seems like a chain quest you can only pick up in the records, and it starts when you go explore that new continent. In the story, it says the king didn't invest in Fernand's idea, and only cared once he disappeared. With 30 minutes left, the hero finally finds the war records. Lepanto mentioned. There was an operation called Fragment Pulverization, where they were going to take down the commander first. But since he needs to focus on something else, he uses the director's mirror to record it and read it later. Then, all of a sudden, a portal starts opening in the library, and Lee-hae hears they're going to check the Second Great War section, because Archmage Rotsak randomly asked for it. Rotsak asked them to see if anything was missing, because some unexpected person entered the palace. The subordinate thinks it's ridiculous, but goes to check the First Great War books, and when he does, he screams. He says some documents were out of order, and it's about the part of the battle in the marching fields. On top of that, they can hear the sound of a door opening. By some miracle, the protagonist makes it to the stairs and gets back from the royal archives safely, but he can already hear a bunch of people looking for the little thief. The guards' orders are to go after anyone suspicious they see, so the protagonist figures it's best to take the shortest route. The problem is, near the wall, he bumps into a knight. Sir Syndergaard gets really annoyed, but then they recognize each other. So they greet each other, and someone shouts congratulations to the Holy Knight. A mage says the protagonist must be an intruder, and he actually is, so he has to play dumb. The knight meanwhile says they can't just arrest people without proof, plus he reminds them he was the one who defeated the kobold chief. Clark still yells that he's the most suspicious one, but Sir Syndergaard says it's messed up to accuse his friend like that. Our hero is basically about to fall in love, and the scribe realizes he needs proof, so he asks if he knows No Brown. The hero says any musketeer knows him, but since there's nothing else to do, they leave. In the end, Lee-hae thanks him for the help, and Sir Syndergaard also thanks him for being useful. Anyway, about why they're there, the old man shows up saying he came to visit someone with his student. Brown also thanks the royal guard, and the protagonist asks to be excused, then everyone says goodbye. In the meantime, the old man didn't manage to meet Rotsak, but at least Lee-hae can say his part was done. Back home, the protagonist didn't have time to look at the Royal Archives report, so he got ready to go over it with his master. At 9 o'clock, a guard saw the two of them heading toward the Demon King's army, and when he called out, he got shot. The next day, at 8 in the morning, a group that chased them got their limbs messed up. At 10 o'clock, they attacked a battalion, and again, nobody came back without getting hurt. According to the reports, the two of them teamed up with the demons, and only now does the Lepanto part start. At 11 p.m., the two reached the 67th Regiment, grabbed supplies, and escaped with a dark elf. But before they left, they warned everyone to watch out for Rotsak. The hero thought the Archmage was shady for hiding things, but now it looks like there's more to it. Another witness said Miss Elizabeth was pregnant, so the old man slammed the table. He thinks it's ridiculous. Nobody said anything, and he's so mad he's basically biting his own lip. The three of them were called the Three Musketeers, but clearly they weren't that close. Still, the director says he's relieved because at least they're alive. Brown thinks it's funny they still call him director after all this, and the hero says there must be a reason. Anyway, he thanks him. The mission is complete, and the old man admits Lee-hae is the only person he can trust now. So a new mission pops up called Agony of the Musketeer Left Alone. Lee-hae's never seen the director like this, and thinks this isn't the time to worry about anything else. The problem is he didn't get any money. But then suddenly someone yells, and it turns out there's an auction going on. Looks like people got together to trade their stuff, and both sellers and buyers pay a 5% fee. That's when the hero remembers he can still sell the kobold boss's spear. He thinks it's a waste of time to wait around just to trade because of the fee, but he loses it when he sees the weapon is worth 60 gold. And that's just a rare item, so he yells with excitement. Back in the real world, some guy is pressuring Mrs. Kim to hurry up and pick up an order. It's rush hour, her phone rings, and she gets bummed because she's getting scolded. Lidik texted her worried and asked for her bank account number because he made some money. His mom sends it without really getting it, but when she opens the banking app she sees 10 million won deposited. Lee-hae got 110 gold from the sale, which is an awesome result for someone who just started playing, and since it's all because of the game, he's grateful. He remembers all the big moments he's had so far. Anyway, he's got 3 days until he can meet the old man, and since it's not lunchtime yet, he figures it's nice to hang out in the medieval land a bit longer. That night, Kijong dreamed about when he fought Berserk and got absolutely crushed. It was more like a nightmare, so he woke up screaming in fear. Just looking at the VR device makes the kid start shaking and it pisses him off. Then suddenly the main character calls and asks if he's just chilling. Lee-hae says he's free too and invites his friend over for steak at his place. So they set it for 8 o'clock, and just hearing its meat, Kijong realizes the hero must have made a ton of money. Of course he's not surprised, because the hero's been killing it so far, and thinking about that even motivates the guy to play again. Lee-hae really doesn't want to waste time. He has a lunchbox worth 100 million, and wants to find out if it's actually worth that much. But the only one who can confirm it is Madame Ru's sister, named Juice. The hero stops in front of her house, knocks on the door and gets greeted. The girl is tall and clearly annoyed she has to answer the door at night. Lee Ha introduces himself, scared out of his mind, but when it's time to say why he's there, he realizes he didn't plan anything. At the last second, he pulls out some smoked rabbit meat and says her sister asked her to taste it. He manages to get inside for now, but the girl gets curious. Anyway, the hero thinks the NPCs in this game are pretty chill, and that to get a real reaction you need to use a keyword, so he needs to figure out what Madame's keyword is. Lee Ha says Ru also told him to mention the lunchbox, and that gets the sister interested. Looks like he guessed right. The girl says she got a letter saying something like that, but then never heard anything else. By the way, Lee Ha asks if it's hard to open a shop in the capital, and apparently Ru didn't explain it very well. He also wants to know why the lunchbox is so important, so she explains that her sister's food is made from the monster from Candle Castle. Powerful rich people always want to try it, so it's going to end up in the hands of whoever's most influential. The first person the protagonist thinks of is the king, but the girl explains she only does what her sister tells her. Changing the subject, Jess just says that's where most of the strong people in the kingdom hang out. Having everyone in one restaurant only makes the place seem more valuable, so the hero suddenly gets an idea and makes up an excuse so he can rush out. Jess is totally fine with it, because he thought the guy was interesting, just like his sister said. After logging out of VR, Lita thinks it's insane that these NPCs who were supposed to be normal starter village characters have this kind of backstory. But then out of nowhere, his mom shows up with his friend and immediately hugs the protagonist super tight. She starts crying and asks if all that money came from something shady, but his friends explain everything together. After the meal, Lita brings up the lunchbox quest, but instead of selling the item like they'd agreed, he says he's going to finish the quest, and the kid can't believe it. Kijong cries so much that Lita has to explain that Ru actually wanted to create an information guild disguised as a restaurant, so the hero asks Kijong for advice, since he's a veteran player. The blonde guy says the game can go in that direction, and he's been through something like it before, but it was crazy expensive. Still, you get amazing info, and since the guide is an NPC, it's basically pay to win. In the capital, there aren't any because of the royal family's privacy, and that's why the lunchbox was going to end up in the king's hands. The reward was an invitation to the restaurant's opening ceremony. So the blonde guy warns it sounds like a trap, because no one would actually follow through like that. An item at that level could be used or sold, and the hero agrees it's weird, but there's a chance the reward doesn't stop at just an invitation, and could trigger a really good butterfly effect. Because of that, later he goes back to the sister's house. She recognizes him as the messenger from a few days ago, and right away the protagonist says that actually he's the one who was supposed to bring the lunchbox. The twist is she already knew, and now she finds him even more interesting. Jess offers him something to drink, but what the protagonist wants is information. Of course he was expecting that, because he delivered the lunchbox to find out what the reward was. Leia tries to say it's not exactly like that, but Jess doesn't care. The sister said most people wouldn't deliver the lunchbox, but if someone did, they'd either be an idiot or someone who already knew the plan and wanted an advantage. No average person would make it that far, so the quest is meant for someone who wants to profit beyond just money. The problem is that no matter who brought the lunchbox, the sister also said to kill them. The moment he gets attacked, the hero barely dodges a steel spear. He yells, demanding to know why, and the girl compliments Liha's strength. But before the protagonist can shoot, a bunch of ninjas rush into the house trying to kill Liha. At least he reloaded the musket beforehand, so he nails one of them. Another spear comes in, but Liha lands a kick right in the assassin's stomach. Then he shouts for everyone to freeze or he'll shoot the lady and take the lunchbox. But even with the threat, the girl just laughs, saying Liha's rude to women. Our hero insists the Holy Knights will show up because of the noise, but just hints they've been bribed. Just says anyone planning to cause trouble in the capital prepares in advance, and that his sister would have given the kid a 10, but she only gives him an 8. Actually, Jess explains it was all a test, so she drops the score to a 5, saying it's over. For a moment, the hero thinks about just shaking her hand and calling it even, but decides to take control. So he keeps the gun pointed at her, because he feels betrayed, and because of the test, he demands compensation from the future guild leader. Then the girl starts laughing non-stop at how shameless he is for someone who wants to be a leader. That was the response that completed the quest, so Jess agrees to give our hero some useful information. 2 days later in Lars Canyon, the protagonist finds a bunch of medicinal herbs where Jess told him to go. Liha earns the title Goblin Nose Collector for killing 1,000 of them, since he's in the perfect spot to shoot from. So now it's time to go see No Brown. Inside the quest house, the hero announces he's there, and the old man comments that the kid looks a little different. No Brown asks if the hero trained, which surprises Liha that he noticed. But it makes sense, he went up 12 levels, so he explains everything. The old man says that'll make his progression faster, because it's time to upgrade him so he can be part of the next generation of the Three Musketeers. That means the missions he'd done up to now weren't the kind a normal musketeer would get. Everything was basically training him to become the next generation. The problem is the whole thing with the missing people and the old man, but Liha thinks he'll figure that out later. Since the mission is to kill a golem, the hero says he's never killed one before, and then hears it's going to be worse than the kobold. Liha gets so freaked out it looks like he's about to refuse, but in the end he accepts the mission. Up on a mountain, a bunch of people form parties to take on the golem. They want fire or ice type mages, and that's what the hero found online. Normally there are golems and carnivorous plants there. Ranged damage dealers avoid the golems, and the warriors hate the plants. There are always opposite kinds of monsters, so it doesn't favor anyone. But if you were a different class, you couldn't run this route. Apparently the mission only shows up for the first 3 people who pass the old man's test. So the hero thanks his mom, freaks out because there's a group fighting a golem, and immediately takes off running. Golems only use smash and slam type moves. It's predictable, but a little rock the hero kicks on the ground merges with others and turns into a huge rock golem. So he quickly preps his ammo, thinking that with these conditions he's gonna fire a really strong shot. The wind's blowing southeast, so he accounts for it and shoots straight at the head. Problem is, the monster doesn't go down in one shot. Leaf thinks he underestimated it, so he lines up another shot and hits again, but the monster looks like it's about to crush the kid alive. At that moment, the kid calms down, and instead of running, loads the last round into the musket and fires a shot that finally blows the golem into pieces. The hero leaves thinking it took 3 shots, but the monster was regenerating underneath and suddenly almost caught the kid with an attack. So with no time to overthink, he uses the precise hand technique to keep firing until he spots the golem's heart. Seeing that, the kid gets confident, because that has to be its weak point, but the monster covers it back up with rocks, totally embarrassing him. Lohua runs and loses 50% of his HP. He's lucky there's no stamina limit, so he checks the mission again. It says he has to see something he couldn't see from far away, like the heart, but you can't beat it just by shooting that. After heading out to look for more info, the kid hears a bunch of noise. That earlier group is still fighting golems, but unlike Lohua, they crack open the core and manage to destroy the heart with a straight-up beating. Curious, Lohua asks if that little ball is anything special. Then a guy explains you just need to land 1 hit on it to win. Some people call it a testicle, which honestly makes sense since it drops the thing for good. Anyway, all you have to do is shoot when it's exposed. But the guy tells Lohua to leave if he doesn't want to die. On top of that, the hero asks about the bronze golem, and hears that when the boss shows up, everyone rushes it without even thinking. But the conversation stops because the rock golem respawns, so they say goodbye, and the hero leaves, with the guy thinking the shooter is definitely gonna die. The hero learns he has to hit the ball before it regenerates its shell, and without paying attention, he almost falls off the cliff. Shooters like him struggle to break rocks, so he's thinking it over when someone falls from above right next to him, and that's because the bronze golem who just spawned threw the guy. The golem's name is Tyron Rouge. Everyone nearby gets hit with debuffs. Down below, word spreads and the people on the side start fighting it. It takes 5 minutes for 10 people to gather, so if Liho wants to solo it, he has to beat the monster before that happens. Anyway, a guy yells at a mage not to use electric magic, but the kid doesn't hear, and when the lightning hits the golem, it screams. But the ones who get hurt are everyone else, because it reflects the attack and fries the whole group. A few days later, a guy in the city is looking for people to form a party. He runs into the hero, but gets disappointed because it's another newbie. At least the kid thinks Lee is going to get smacked around by the carnivorous plant, so he follows him, then doesn't get why they end up in the golem area. Before he can even see anything, there's a flash and then the sound of a gunshot. Then the protagonist says what he wanted to do worked. 9 days later at the Tenero Peaks, the hero waits for the golem to respawn, surrounded by players the plants have eaten. With all his skills, he doesn't fall for the traps, and after 10 days, he finally gets to see the boss. Leah gets hit with all the negative status effects. Some people freak out, but the hero uses a potion that clears them and activates the steady hand technique. Problem is, the shot does 0 damage, but at least he manages to land something on it. Leah throws a bomb that explodes instantly, and since the cores are exposed, the kid basically wipes the floor with everyone. Lately, the heroes learned how to make bombs just by wrapping up gunpowder, spending a bit of cash. The monster charges, and Leah realizes there's a phase where bombs don't work. On top of that, the other golems try to jump him too, but the protagonist stands his ground, saying he's gonna win in the end. After the shootout, Leah feels totally humiliated. He knows he can't die or give up the mission, so he decides to try one last thing. Leah knows the monster already took a beating, and he just needs to land one more hit, but an attack comes in to crush him. Our hero almost gets clipped, so all he can do is back off as far as possible. He tries to stay out of the AoE attacks, but it still doesn't work. He gets slammed into a wall. His HP drops hard, and the monster closes in, but its core is exposed, so the protagonist uses the force barrier. That ring barrier won't let anyone come within 3 meters, so Lidoa uses the opening to fire one last shot at the little orb. And that day was the first time a shotgun was fired in a medieval world. The most impressed one is the vulture that showed up to eat the hero's corpse, but just seeing it makes it happy because it can make some money. Back at the watchtower, Lidoa drops into the middle of a bunch of players, doesn't even care and yells, celebrating the mission he cleared. He managed to kill the golem solo because the barrel survived a shotgun blast. Either way, Lidoa needs to log out at the forge to get the musket repaired. But first he checks a bunch of achievements he got, like Stellar Craftsman, because his janky musket hack actually worked. He also got one called Master of Solo Players, though some people even got a better version. Probably by crafting something like he did with the bomb. Anyway, when Lidoa opens his stats, he sees 82 points to spend. No Brown's quests are awesome, and the hero figures he only cleared it because of his dexterity. Still, he splits the points with intelligence too because he thinks it'll help with crafting. And speaking of that skill, he can name the things he creates, basically summon them and power them up. Lidoa tries to name the bomb with the idea of making a ton of money because he wants something flashy. Problem is, the system trolls him and auto-names it fuse wire. So after crying a bit, Lidoa logs off and goes to sleep. But while he's sleeping, the big payday he wanted is already on the way, thanks to the replay of his boss fight gameplay. After the session, the hero sleeps for 12 hours. He goes to the fridge starving, but sees there's basically only medicinal herbs his mom bought. Lidoa needs to make more money to change that, so he sits down, hyped to do some research before playing. He starts by checking the rankings, but then a video of him fighting the bronze golem pops up. Someone uploaded it without permission, so Lidoa wants to get it taken down. But if he complains, the uploader will figure out who he is. And what's even crazier is people are offering money to find out. Kijung messages him, so apparently people who know him already recognized him. Anyway, the protagonist puts a shield up for sale. It's the shield he got from the golem, so the kid starts looking at it while Lido brags a little, but then says that even though it's good for PvP, it's worse than his. It's wild because the shield is worth 180 gold coins. Still, the kid thanks him and heads off to play. So the protagonist thinks about his friend and his mom who've been helping him a lot, and he heads out too, motivated to pay them back. The auction price goes up to 188, but the hero spent a ton on items and trying to fix the musket. He ended up with nothing because it didn't work, and to make it worse, he notices his cloak got torn on some random branch. Even worse, he was rolling around on the ground trying to kill the golem, so he's gonna look like a bum until he gets money again. In the end, even though he went out planning to treat his friend, he had to call and ask for a favor. That's how he got a new set with a nice discount of 3 gold coins thanks to the bargain skill. So now he's going to see No Brown to finish the quest. When he gets back, after they greet each other, the old man says the kid looks different. Just like he expected. He said the main character's got talent, so he unlocks this skill called Hawkeye, which makes you really want to try it out. The mission happened because Lika couldn't see well from far away. Their main job is sniping, and you can't do that without good eyesight. So this time, the hunting quest switches to a sniper quest. Collect 5 Roadrunner feathers. But the moment Lika remembers those things, he gets a chill down his spine. Lika asks just to be sure if it's like that golden eagle at the Castle of Light. But the old man says it's way worse, which freaks the hero out. At least he won't die if he fails. But then another quest pops up too, Elizabeth's Legacy, which you complete later by hitting a target from 444 meters away. She always said that if someone could land a shot from that distance, they'd become her successor. Lika, all hyped up, asks if he has to do it right now. The old man says no, but if he becomes her successor, he'll deserve the weapon on the wall. That was the Mrs. Musket, and the other 2 already belonged to someone. The powers of the 3 musketeers had been passed on too, so Lise was going to focus on accuracy. So the kid thinks hard about whether to accept the mission, but says he'll go after the Roadrunners first. Out in the desert where those monsters live, the protagonist watches the first one he's going to try to kill from a distance. He activates Hawkeye and his accuracy jumps up like he's using a sniper scope. It doesn't zoom in, but it helps a lot. So he tries to shoot, but the monster notices and takes off running like the Flash, leaving the hero confused and unable to even track it. Whenever one of these shows up, players stop hunting. So after 3 straight days of grinding, the hero is completely wrecked. He still hasn't gotten a single feather, and again the birds won't even let him get close. Lihak practically begs, but then suddenly he hears something weird in the sound of their running. He only notices it now because the desert is so open, but the Roadrunner has a pattern. So when he shoots with that in mind, a knight nearby comes over to check what the noise was. Lihak gets an achievement for landing a 200-meter shot, and it's awesome that his theory worked. After that discovery, he keeps hunting, and now everything's going smoothly. The hero finally gets what sniping really means, because you just have to send them exactly where you want. A hunter's fun is chasing, but a sniper's fun is waiting. That's why Liha has 20 days for the quest, which he's thankfully figured out in time. Out of nowhere, some guy starts yelling at the protagonist, calling him every name in the book, and demands he give his ring back. Yep, Hyung Nim showed up again to be a pain in the ass with some Sunrise Guild goons. The hero thought they wouldn't show their faces again after that last embarrassment, but he's not scared because out of the 10 people there, he's probably the strongest. Hyung Nim demands all his gear and the golem shield as compensation. Then one of their mages rips a scroll that blocks all return scrolls. With nowhere to run, Liha calls Kijung for help. His friend agrees but says it'll take a bit. To make it out, the protagonist has to stall as long as possible, so he pretends he's going to settle things by returning the ring. Hyung Nim doesn't buy it, but during the distraction, Liha takes a shot, and it only fails because the shield guy blocks it for the boss. The leader even thanks him because he seriously thought he was about to die. He gets so pissed he says he's going to kill the hero at spawn every time from now on, so Liha has to fight without time to reload. At least he's got that homemade bomb. He tosses it over the assassins and blows it up. While everyone's scrambling around trying to find a mage, the hero manages to reload his ammo. But then out of nowhere, a samurai throws out this air slice attack, and Liha barely blocks it with the ring's force barrier. He didn't expect someone like that to be in Sunrise. The guy's name is Zako and he looks like Hyung Nim's superior. Hyung Nim is totally sucking up to him, but then another bomb from the hero goes off and knocks both of them flat like trash. Unfortunately, Leha's plan to finish Zako off like that doesn't work, and the force barrier only lasts about 5 minutes. Leha doesn't know if he's gonna survive, but before Kijong arrives, that knight from earlier comes over asking what's going on. He recognizes Sunrise and realizes they're doing PK. He also notices the protagonist is a musketeer and asks if he knows about the sleeping boy, but Leha tells him to run. Hyungnim orders them to shoot him, so the hero throws himself in front of the stranger to save him. Bad luck. The arrow hits Leha in the shoulder, and when they fall, he ends up seriously hurt. So again, Leha tells the knight to get the hell out, and since the kid stepped out of the barrier, Zako immediately attacks with his explosive fragmented slash. But the knight tells Leha to fall back, and instead of dying, he shuts down the enemy's power. Turns out the knight is actually a female knight, and she says she can't stand people who go around attacking others. After that, the girl notices the protagonist has a potion and gets interested. The shield guy steps up to the front line, but she shoves Leha back and lands a long-range thrust on the enemy. Kim drops screaming because his HP gets wiped out completely, until he dies. Then Zako is stunned because he didn't even see his underling get taken out. Because Leha got hurt trying to help, the girl gives him a health potion, and the hero goes back to normal. Even though she doesn't want to fight, she remembers how out of line those guys are. Zako just complains and thinks he should retreat, but his pride won't let him, so he orders the remaining goons to finish the two of them. Realizing there's no avoiding it, the girl charges in, and the hero doesn't even need to help. They weren't weak, but she's way too strong, so Leha wants to know who she is. When it's all over, Leha tries to give the potion back, but the knight lets him keep it since he tried to protect her. There's even a bit of a moment between them, but they change the subject. Before the girl leaves, the hero calls out, thanks her, and asks her name. That's when Kijong finally shows up, running in to save his friend. Leha tries to message him that it's already over, but the guy doesn't read it. He comes in swinging at the girl like she's the enemy. Then he activates the Holy Spirit Turtle Advance, but the girl blocks it at the last second. After that, she asks if they can talk. Kijong immediately asks why this girl is with his friend, since she's 6th in the world ranking. And then Leha finally realizes she's the same as the fencer Shin Nura. This fencer is a national gold medalist, and uses a blade kind of like a rapier, with techniques like Lepanto's. Kijong asks if they know each other, so the girl sums it up. The hero saved her, and she's returning the favor by taking down bandits. Everyone introduces themselves, and since she uses a different weapon, Nura explains it's because she's traveling, looking for a magic sword. Leha asks if it's like a brooch, and she basically yells, asking if the hero has any clue because her quest is to find it, but he doesn't know anything. The hero's only heard about a quest, but just knowing it's near the border already helps. So she says goodbye, thanks them, and also sends Leha a private message, telling him to add her and not tell anyone. As they walk together, Kijong messes with his friend's embarrassed face, reminding him he's never had a girlfriend. About the capital, the blonde guy says the girl is a holy knight. She was the first one to get the title, so she's famous. About the rising sun, the hero explains everything, which makes his friend mad. Then Kijong says he'll have to hide until he hits level 100, but Leha says no because he wants payback. He says that, but he knows there are tons of players in the guild, and it's hard to do anything alone. Back at the cabin, the old man sees the student learn the lesson and praises him for finishing the mission so fast. Then the protagonist gets the skill mark, but No Brown says he still needs to learn how to tell human targets apart. The third mission is a comprehension test. Kill Angel, the bandit boss. The bandits are in the southeast area, and the old man gives Leha a wanted poster so he knows what the guy looks like. Even so, the protagonist says that if he kills the boss, someone else will just take his place. The old man says the bandits might scatter, but he doesn't really care because you only find out the result afterward, like flipping a coin. So the protagonist's doubts go away. He says he's heading out, thinking hard about that advice, and gets fired up to take out Angel, who's in a desert that's perfect for catching a bullet. Days later, in the desert, Angel asks his goons for some beers. Everyone drinks till they drop, with girls around, except the guards who still have to work. Today, Lisi sees the risk of getting caught is low. He used the marking skill the first time he saw the boss, and he can only use it on 3 targets at once. That's how he figured out where they were, after walking for 10 hours. Meanwhile, he also noticed a pattern in the routes they've been taking for 17 days. But there are magic circles in the fortress. It's impossible to go back using a return scroll, but hitting them during the party is his only shot, if he waits until Angel shows up. After he sobers up a bit, Angel starts chatting before throwing up. So with everything set up, the hero fires, and the man drops. But the guards are yelling that the shadow is dead, which makes 0 sense. Everyone starts looking around for a killer nearby, someone with tracking skills, and the real leader tells them to boost the magic. Even after 17 days, Leah still hadn't realized Angel was just a skinny little kid. They all ride out to capture the main guy, and he runs off thinking he's totally screwed. With no other choice, he throws a bomb right into the crowd. He manages to lose them, but Angel still won't give up on getting revenge on whoever did it. Back in the city, Leah thinks it's insane that the photo was fake from the start. When he went to use the mark, they spotted each other, so now it's only a matter of time before he gets found. Even in the city, the bad guys suddenly show up and start setting everything on fire. Angel tells the city boss to snitch on who just arrived, but since the guy doesn't know anything, Angel orders his goons to wipe everyone out. That bandit's already survived a bunch of assassination attempts before, so he was one step ahead. An explosion goes off in an alley and makes him think the hero's there, but then more explosions start popping off in other places too. The bandits lose it, but at least Angel figures Leah must have escaped. In the end they leave, but the hero didn't expect them to burn down a whole city just to find him, so he decides the leader's gonna pay. Nobody manages to find the kid, even after searching 3 villages, but the leader doesn't believe he actually got away, so he tells a group to follow him so they can move the fortress. It's gonna be a ton of work, but Angel thinks it's pointless, since they already know where it is. Since nobody stayed behind at the base, 2 of them go to move the warehouse stuff and toss whatever's useless. But while he's talking, the bandit leader gets knocked off his horse by a clean shot. Someone was in the forest, but it doesn't really matter now because they're next. After finishing the mission, the protagonist gains reputation in the kingdom, and even though it's only D+ rank, at least choosing to go back to the fortress ended up being the right call. Angel was pretty good for an NPC, but the protagonist is more focused on the mission description, because since he couldn't save the villagers, he's not satisfied unless next time he does better. Back at the cabin, the old man already knows everything, and the hero's embarrassed about the burned villages, so he says Angel wasn't the man in the photo. He killed a stand-in, and 3 villages got burned because of it. Leah feels awful, but the old man says the person who sent the photo wanted to apologize. No, Brown doesn't see anything wrong with it, because the mission was just the assassination. It would have been better if he'd saved the villages too, but at least Leah got the sniper skill and a gold coin. The skill seems like it's for long-range shooting, and the hero still won't accept Beth's mission. Anyway, it's time to level up solo, but first the hero asks if the old man knows about any sleeping child, and apparently the old man knows a little. In the end, he talks like he's about to explain, but then he goes quiet. The hero dumps all his stat points into dexterity and goes to check the new skill. Beginner Sniper improves the gunpowder, protects the gun's cylinder, and boosts weapon range by 30% for 1 minute. Because of that, Leah manages to hit a shot at 455 meters in a test. Crazy lucky. But switching gears, it's almost time for the Holy Grail grand opening. Just like the hero expected, nobody realizes it's a restaurant. Even the veterans wouldn't know what it's for, so Leah's gonna get ahead of the competition. But this weirdo who's been stalking the hero looks like he's got some shady plan. On top of one of the Chini mountains, near the orc village, the hero doesn't account for the wind and shoots at a mining monster's weapon. Unfortunately, he was aiming at the orc, so it goes really badly. Now he's got more range, but the speed is slow. The sound travels faster than the musket shot, so the monsters can react. Obviously, the mission was going to put the protagonist in the worst possible situation. And to make it worse, the Sol Nascente crew finds the hero again. But the moment he realizes the problem, he rips a return scroll to Verport, and the others chase after him. In Verport, the hero wants to know how he got found, but he figures he was marked. He can't tell who marked him, so he runs to the capital and says he doesn't care what it costs. Hyndam tells the mages to grab Leha before he escapes, but the trip starts and luckily ends before the magic can hit him. The hero thinks it's ridiculous. They'd use magic in a village, but he can't keep spending money just to run. Unfortunately, he has to send another message to Kijan explaining the whole situation. Leha can't even tell how many of them there are or what levels, but at least the capital is safe. For now, the hero can only stay in the capital or get hunted because of the mark. So he doesn't ask his friend to come over and then basically like a madman says he's going to solve this by wiping out the whole Rising Sun Guild. Kijan sends him this huge text saying it's dangerous, but Leha remembers what the old man said about trying first, and his friend realizes there's nothing he can do to stop him. Still, he at least tells Leha to register a guild because if he just kills everyone, he'll be labeled a criminal. But if he declares war, he'll only be safe in the capital anyway, so Kijan tells him to really think through the consequences. Even so, Leha thanks him and says he doesn't need to worry because he used to be a real sniper. In Rising Sun's banquet hall, a host announces the award for Best Field Manager, and the E-Troll team wins. They go up on stage to a bunch of ass-kissing and applause, and then they move on to the Best Battle Agent award. But suddenly a message pops up saying some random guild declared war. Its name is Sunset Bandits, and the owner is some guy named Leha. One member says it's pretty bold to use a name similar to theirs, but then he remembers Leha is the one they've been hunting. On the opening day of the Holly Grill, everyone realizes it's an expensive restaurant and leaves. The receptionist turns all the customers away, but lets Leha in. Everyone's shocked. It's so random people start thinking he's an NPC. The hero's walking around in a mask so he won't run into his enemies. Anyway, he wants to know what he's going to get out of this place, so when Jess finds him, Leha congratulates her on the grand opening, but immediately asks for information. Even though he's super blunt, the girl tells him to follow her. Leha expected the place to be more shady, but it's actually really luxurious. Since it's a legit business, there's no problem showing off a bit, so they sit alone on the top floor. Except there are a few assassins hidden in the room, and they're really good. Getting straight to the point, Jess tells the kid not to ask anything vague, so he thinks it over and asks something specific about Rising Sun. Jess praises the question and answers it, basically laying out a whole plan for him, like she's feeding him answers on a test. Anyway, Jess offers to introduce him to the people who came for the opening ceremony, and since there are important folks there, Leha agrees immediately. Back at the enemy guild, some fat higher-up says Hyung Nim is trash for losing to a musketeer, but the kid points out HQ still doesn't know about it, which means they've got a chance to fix it and take the credit. So the fat guy says he'll write a report later and start the hunt when the GCs arrive. But out of nowhere, a subordinate runs in and tells the branch leader the GCs who were on the way got ambushed. The lackey doesn't know who did it, but after thinking for a second, the manager figures it out. If it's the musketeer, he yells that this is their chance to finish him off. So he orders Hyung Nim to go get the guy. The guild members can't group up because they keep getting picked off. Hyung Nim doesn't even know where the hero is hiding, so one guy yells they should sprint 50 meters and runs out alone, only to get a little gift in the back. All they can hear is gunfire, and the leader can tell from the sound it's not magic. Hyung Nim thinks maybe it's an invisible fighter, because if he attacks he should show himself. So he can't believe a player is doing this. From far away, a shot almost hits the branch manager, Danyoku, when he steps out of the cabin. So Hyung Nim realizes it's the protagonist somewhere out there. He tells everyone to run because reloading takes time, so everyone hides inside the cabin. That's when Hyung Nim notices smoke in the forest, but there's no way a musket could hit from that far. To Liha, they reacted fast. He still doesn't know their names, but he's already taken down 10 people. But getting the rats to hide was part of the plan. The info Madame Juice gave him included the location of every branch and good shooting spots, so even though he's alone, he's got enough of a positioning advantage to believe he can win. Inside the cabin, Hyung Nim explains the idea to the boss, and the boss freaks out. The underlings start thinking they should call HQ for help, but Danyoku tells them to stay calm, because maybe the hero is some rich guy out for revenge, so if they catch him, they'll make a lot of money. Hyung Nim meanwhile remembers the hero only had 50 gold. He goes to tell the boss, but Danyoku shuts him up by promising him a promotion. Basically, he's pretending while planning to throw everyone away except the two of them. Back to Liha. He realizes how good it is to move through the mountains so nobody spots you. In a single day, the no-name guild hit the south branch, the riverside one, the east one, and the Manhwa mountain branch. So the last one was going to be the Emerald Jungle branch. In the meantime, the main guy killed 3 leaders and 2 vice leaders, plus at least 4 GCs. Out of the ones who went out to get the hero's attention and taunt him, one of them just gets absolutely clocked in the head. Then whoever's left spots where the protagonist is, but they get wrecked too, because they're way too far away to reach him. At a meeting, the guildmaster almost breaks the table from how pissed he is. He calls in the chubby guy because the hero's beef with them started because of the southern branch. Thanks to that kid, their income dropped 43% this month, so Danyoku started getting worried. He waited for the hero to show up that day, but since he didn't, the boss only gave them 1 more week to make him delete his account, and he also said he was going to go visit them to get some info himself. Back to the hero. He's trying to find the sunrise punks. They should be furious, but they're not chasing him anymore. Finally, Lita finds one, so he lands a clean shot on him. He's about to move on to the next, but the target was bait to figure out where he was. A whole combat squad is coming in. An archer fires an arrow, and yeah, they actually know what they're doing. The group gets close to some adventurers who get curious about what's going on, and even more curious about where they're headed. Inside the forest, you can't see anything, but Zeiko says he'll handle it. He rips open a scroll, making light, and Hyung Nim says he can call reinforcements. So Zeiko lets the other guy take command. Right away, the guy sends a message to Danyoku. Then he summons 531 branch agents, all at the forest entrance. Each HQ will have a unit to command in this operation, making 20 units of 25 people. So the hunt and wipeout operation begins, and Hyung Nim will finally get to kill Lifa. They're still arguing about the plan, but Lifa hears how many people it'll be and starts prepping harder, because it's going to be one hell of a fight. The forest is huge. Even though it's a low-level area, it's easy to get lost. Zako yells for nobody to let their guard down, because the hero's just a musketeer, so everyone spreads out to search. The samurai wants to be the first to find him, but one of his underlings drops dead on the spot, so he dives in with everyone else, so they won't be next. With all this fog, it's hard to tell where the shot came from. Zako thinks it's some kind of magic skill and starts freaking out, so he stands up yelling and slashes an underling, who asked everyone to be quiet. Zako was desperate and totally screwed up, because the moment he exposed himself, he got a homemade bomb as a gift. The hero stays up above in the darkness, because if you're fighting from hiding, you can't be standing out in the open. There's a reason he only moves through the west. The first step in war is choosing your battlefield. A big forest he knows well is the best place for a fair fight, because the enemies need light, but the second they light up, they get shot. The problem is leveling up from kills also gives off light, so everyone sees which tree the hero's in. The assassins find a rope to climb the tree and start going up, but they find out the hard way it was a trap to set off bombs. It gets so bad that outside, Hyung Nim wants to know what the hell is going on. And after the explosion, there's this really weird silence, until someone steps out, and unfortunately for them, it's the protagonist alive and well. Liha asks if Hyung Nim didn't go in because of the level gap, and knowing what he did, the underlings want revenge. So Liha calls them out to fight, but then suddenly someone tells everyone to stop. Hyung Nim shows up to interfere, along with the knight who partied with the hero before. They'd held out this long because of the numbers advantage, but not anymore. Seeing that, other adventurers get brave and want payback too. So Liha asks if they're really going to keep going because if Hyung Nim loses, he's going to pay for it. The Sunrise Guild leader went to get info about the hero from someone important. A subordinate messaged him saying it'd be expensive, but he didn't care, and when he got it, it was a shock, because it proved Leah had the location of all their branches. On top of that, the person said it was another intel guild, one he doesn't know, that passed along the info. And they finished by asking for 1,000 gold to assassinate the hero. Back at the forest entrance, Heimdall chose to retreat in tears because he knew he was about to get chewed out. And the hero said he wasn't going to feel sorry for them, so they all logged out of the game. Then the players who hated those guys started yelling, hyping up the protagonist, lifting him up and tossing him in the air. Even a girl came over wanting to add him, but the hero didn't even get the chance to be a simp, because the place got packed with people, and his friends had to pull him out of there. So the tanker ripped open a teleport scroll, and they got sent to some random cabin. First off, the hero thanks them for helping him. Then Matsuhige explains the kid's known as the Cloud Mage now, because every time he ambushed Rising Sun, you could see smoke from far away. Speaking of that, Leah asks if the two of them are dating, but they say no, not yet. Anyway, Hana wants to check out the weapon, since she saw it can shoot from really far away. Meanwhile, the hero's thinking about heading back to the capital now, but in the middle of that, his friends straight up snap his musket in half. It didn't break in one hit, but yeah, it broke, and Leah freaking out asks what the hell they're doing. Leah says seriously, if this is some prank he's not enjoying it, but the knight doesn't care. They say it's none of the kids' business whether they're from Rising Sun too, and they mention their leader is on the way. Looks like they had a deal with Okaya in exchange for the hero, but he has no idea who that is. The first time he met them was by chance, so it was just bad luck they turned out to be enemies, and this Okaya person must have been behind it. Still, the hero tries to run and Matsuhige warns him he can draw his sword first, but either way he smiles because the guild leader shows up. The knight and the leader clearly know each other, and to the hero it looks like they're all part of the same guild. At that point, the protagonist is thinking up 1,000 ways to escape, but the leader just invites the kid to team up with them. Nobody gets what they'd gain from that, but the leader figures they can use him, basically make him work like a war dog. Licha immediately tells him to screw off, which pisses the guy off because they're also willing to pay 10,000 gold a year. If it's not a lie, that'd cover his leg surgery in 2 years, but it goes against the hero's principles. So he says Rising Sun is rock bottom while lighting a bomb. And since the enemies let their guard down, the whole place blows up. The hero gets launched away and takes off running with the gun barrel. He's furious at Matsuhige for causing that kind of damage, and unfortunately, he can't shake anyone chasing him. The planning director casts a slow spell to trap the hero, and since he turned down the job offer, the leader's going to kill Licha with his own hands. Problem is, there's nobody nearby, so the hero uses Soul Link, a skill that brings back the soul of the bear boss, who immediately sends the leader flying. So now it's a 2 versus 4 fight. Matsuhige loses it when a fire bear boss just appears out of nowhere. But even though it looks intimidating, it's actually super sweet with the protagonist, so Licha pets Koma. Looks like it's a pretty high level, so he saves the cuddles for later, and focuses on killing the enemies now. The traitor couple and the guild members get hit with the fear debuff. When the leader hits the ground, he says only tamers can summon monsters, so Liha plays dumb. The bear's level is 66, but it jumps to 112 because of some special effect. The hero's level is 92, so the fight's gonna be pretty even. When things go sideways, Hana tries to bail, but the hero tells Koma to kill those 2 scumbags first. They're crying in terror, but crying doesn't stop you from getting blown up alive. Then Liha goes to have a very rough little chat with the Rising Sun leader. He didn't want to say where the info came from, but he ends up ratting out the Shinobugumi guild. They've got intel on players like the protagonist, and the master's name is Okasama, so the hero is satisfied, but he also asks what boss Kyokujitsu is going to do with the guild now. Since everything went to hell, he'd have to shut it down or something. Liha knows word about what he did is already out there, and he remembers that because of them, his brand new rifle got wrecked. Kyokujitsu promises compensation, but it's not enough, so the kid suggests leaving the guild. But the hero also demands they return all the money they stole from players with a contract. And just because they think the deal sucks, he throws in a few more solid beatdowns on those Rising Sun assholes. In the end, violence makes everything work out, and the system announces the guild war is over and declares Sunset Bandits the winners. Even after getting his ass kicked, Kyokujitsu says he'll get revenge. So the hero suggests the planning director just make his own guild. He says the next guild doesn't have to be Kyokujitsu's, so the guy gets hyped about the idea and takes off running with a teleport scroll. So the boss goes after him, leaving only the main character with the little teddy bear, which just hugs Koma and celebrates the win. In Texas, in the United States, a guy at a gun shop tells an older man he's watching some gameplay. He sees the main character going crazy with a musket. Super accurate, even if the shots are slow. Anyway, at 9:30 he clocks out and refuses to work an extra half hour for free. So they say goodbye and the guy takes a small gun with him too. At the same time, at the mansion of the Ice and Fire Mage sisters, the blue-haired one tells the other to take a look, because the main character beat the Rising Sun Guild. Ha-Wing keeps telling people to move because she can't believe Leiha is the Cloud Mage. On top of that, he's the guild master of the Sunset Bandits, and you can see it in the videos. Ha-Wing asks how many enemies he took down and freaks out when she sees it's 500, because the guy powered up insanely fast. It's not like she doesn't want him back in the guild, but now he actually looks strong enough. So Ha-Wing tells her sister she's not against it, but she says it in a way that makes it sound like she's totally into him. Either way, with both of them agreeing, the next step is trying to recruit Leha. When the main character logs back into the game, he gets a ton of positive messages, like people asking to join his guild. 873 messages, everything about what just happened. The original plan was just to use the needle rifle until he got Beth's weapon, but now he ended up taking a huge loss. Even so, Leha earns the achievement, Impartial Judge, plus Hate the Sin Not the Sinner, and Victory in the Guild War. Just that gave him 35 stat points, and then there was also Battlefield Avatar with 16 more. For defeating 500 enemies, he got his first A-rank achievement. Anyway, he puts 20 points into intelligence and the rest into dexterity. Then he starts thinking maybe he's a genius, and since he's planning to visit the academy, he's already expecting the old man to praise him. Leha heads to the cabin with a smile, but notices someone else is there. The person talks like they're an ally, but the hero has no idea who it is. They talk about some third person, who's probably the main character, but the person says they're not going to help a rival. Then he goes on saying it wasn't hard to figure out, and that he only needs to talk about it because Leha's already hearing everything. The moment they run into each other, the main character yells and bolts. He greets the director, apologizing for butting in. But when the person looks at the hero's weapon, he's even more sure he doesn't need to help. So he says he'll come back later, and the old man says he'll be waiting. Getting straight to the point, No Brown says he's heard the latest news. The hero says he still hasn't passed Elizabeth's test, but asks who that person was, and the old man says it was the so-called sleeping child. After that talk, Leha runs after the guy because he needs to speak with him. But he doesn't even have to search, because the kid is waiting up in a tree. Right away, the main character thinks the guy looks like he walked out of a cowboy movie. He also thinks Nero was looking for her boyfriend, but he drops it. Leha apologizes for being nosy and asks if the guy is a musketeer, but the man notices Leha still hasn't taken Elizabeth's test, and that his level is way too low. The way things are now, it wouldn't even be a fight, but it's not like the main character was trying to fight anyway. The man leaves after saying that, and the hero follows him, trying to be heard, but the musketeer kicks the tree and says that's how his test was done. Obviously, the main character doesn't get it, but when he focuses on the word test, it clicks. Then the guy says he's known as Kid the Swift. He's the one who inherited No Brown's legacy, and the two of them really do look alike. His exam was shooting those leaves, but from only 2 meters away, which confuses the hero. At the very least, he had to shoot a bunch at once. Basically, 13 leaves would fall from the tree with one kick, and the old man told Kid to hit all of them before they touched the ground. It takes 3 seconds for the leaves to fall, so hitting 13 sounds completely insane. Kid isn't holding a musket, and the hero thinks that's weird, because he knows you can't store it in your inventory. But the kid says Lita already knows the answer, because he's made bombs before, since it still doesn't make sense. Again, just tell the kid to follow him. But before that, Lita asks why he's helping, and Kid admits he needs the driller's strength. He explains everything in this half-baked way that's hard to understand, but Lita manages to get that Kid is basically a tsundere. He's doing it because he needs help, but he's too embarrassed to just teach like a normal person. Anyway, the protagonist says he'll pass the test soon and become the driller. That makes Kid react even more weirdly, but they say goodbye with that kind of deal in place. Back at the cabin, the old man explains that Kid cleared the test in 3 days, so he had to hand over the muskets. Lita can't wrap his head around how that's possible, but before he leaves, No Brown tells the kid not to be so closed-minded, and the protagonist takes the advice. The hero is still confused, because for some reason the old man said muskets plural, like they were messing with him. Kid was the weirdest part since he wasn't even carrying a weapon, which is insane to Lita. But then the protagonist realizes he managed to put the musket into his inventory. A little later, the blacksmith Zig greets Lita and asks if he's going to mess with the drum again, but the hero hands him the thing cut in half. Zig thinks it'd be better to just buy a new one, but Lita suggests another idea, something he thinks could work if Zig trusts him. The two of them put on a whole show together, considering how it turned out. They managed to make a musket that fit in a bag, and it was actually worth the money. After that, the hero also asks him to put holes in the drum so it can rotate, but Zig is humble about it, says he can't do that, and recommends finding a dwarf for the job. Dwarves are a race that works as blacksmiths and can make magical weapons, and they live in the huge Adamandir mountain range outside the kingdom of Fibiel. Alone in a forest, the protagonist reloads the weapon in 10 seconds. Everything seemed fine, so he tests it by shooting at a leaf, but he misses by a lot. It makes no sense because he's really close. He moves closer and shoots again, but even getting closer and closer, it still doesn't work until it finally does. But from a ridiculous distance of only 25 meters, Leha didn't realize it was going to be that bad. So since he's a sniper, he decides to save it for when some idiot comes in acting cocky. Kid must have passed the test with at least 4 of those reloads, but thinking about fighting with just those little pistols makes him curious about the kid's fighting style. Then out of nowhere, Nara shows up yelling, calling the hero's name. She scolds him for not messaging her when he got to the capital. She notices the new gear too, so Leha explains everything that happened. But she mostly focuses on hyping up the viral video, and she also pulls out her new weapon to show him. Nara managed to break the seal on the magic sword, so now she can be as strong as a named NPC. Speaking of that, the hero says he's not going to stick with the guild, so she invites him to the Order of the Holy Knights. They're close enough, and she agrees to recommend him. The Order of the Holy Knights is one of the strongest groups in the kingdom of Fibiel, but even so, the hero refuses. He still doesn't think he's ready. About the weapon on his waist, Leah is about to explain everything. All excited, but thinking it was kids, she gets furious. All the friendly vibes disappear, so the hero says he made the weapon himself. In reality, they'd only run into each other briefly at the academy, so things calm down. But the reason she got mad is because the two of them fought once a while back, and Nara lost. And the worst part is, it wasn't even close. She straight up got beaten in a duel against Kid. Lehigh comes up with 1,000 it's okay excuses, but Nara was already a ranker, and it wasn't that long ago, so he can't believe it. The reason he's called the Sleeping Kid is because there are rumors he sleeps even in the game. A while ago when Kid got a new item, she found out the Rising Sun Guild wanted to steal it. 30 people went after him, but there isn't even a video of it, because it ended instantly. In the blink of an eye, all 30 guys who came to intimidate him got what they deserved, and Kid stayed sprawled out on the table without even getting up. The only thing that moved was the weapons under the table, and when he woke up, he still asked what had happened. That's how he got the nickname, because he hits targets fast even while sleeping. Nara explains that not everything is about levels, because the system handles the rest. It exposes rankers to predators and throws them at outsiders, who are strong in their own way no matter what. It's all about attributes, and you can raise them without grinding levels like getting rare achievements. And the hero knows that really well, because he's one of those people. From what the girl said, you can get an achievement by killing a ranker. That's why Middle-earth shows everyone's levels on the leaderboard. It pushes competition, and it's also why they never sell the insanely strong weapons they sometimes find. Because if they get hunted down after that, they won't make it back to the top. So the game balances the money between the two worlds. Nara says the protagonist is going to be known as an outsider soon, and a bunch of people will start calling him that, like the Holy Knights. Then she leaves, telling the guy to take care of himself. Somewhere else, the red-haired mage tells them not to threaten him. Hwayeon tells him to put his hands down because he's messing up the meeting. That doesn't even feel like a negotiation about Dale Castle. The redhead says she's not negotiating, so the redhead asks if she'll even survive until then. Looks like he wants to start a guild war, and he's not shy about saying he still doesn't have the money to hire rankers. But he promises them a cut of the castle profits. The girl shakes even more, but accepts the challenge with her head held high. So the redhead leaves, and the girls are basically itching to beat him up. And unlike the ranker strategy, Hwayeon says she's gonna bet on the outsiders. Walking down the street, the protagonist gets a little gift from a fan, and starts feeling like a celebrity. He also made 100 gold coins selling the guild name, so he doesn't have to worry anymore about the musket he'll use until he gets the one from the cabin. At the war planning meeting, the redhead yells that Hwayeon ignored their proposals. Everyone's pissed at the rich girls. As for what they've invested in the castle, it's 21,850 gold so far, and they can't take it back because it was a donation. The people who dumped everything into it lose their minds, and the founding members realize there's no stopping the backlash. Even so, the redhead basically slams his fist down and says the solution is war. He already called the Draconic Knights and the Spark Guildmaster so they won't give up on their money. But people are scared of the Hwang Guild because of Hwajeon and Peiwu. Still, they can choose to try to get their money back, and if they pull it off, they'll have a treasure in their hands. The plan is to gather a bunch of people to be the front line, like Shinra, and they also want to call in the top Korean player second in the rankings, known as Too Easy. So even though it's just a plan, it's enough to hype everyone up. Hai Hin Hyung had been saying stuff they hadn't agreed on, so it'd be hard to bring in the two guy. The redhead realizes he screwed up, calls Sasuke, and tells him to bring the blonde guy over there. Basically, he says he also wants to bring the protagonist into the Boyolcho Guild. That would help a lot, but Ki-jong had already offered, and the hero turned it down because he thought he was too weak. Still, Sasuke says they need that power to increase their attack range, so the blonde says he'll try again. No promises. In the end, the leader tells Sasuke they're going ahead with the plan, and that, as much as it sucks, the only way they make it out alive is by sacrificing Ki-jong. Back in the real world, the protagonist's mom went to work, and with the money he has now, he can finally eat better meals. The musket problem got solved too, so Lee-ha thinks about going hunting for some trolls, until he sees online rumors about a war between Chuhi Ohong and Byolcho. Looks like it had already been declared, and it was over the monopoly on Dale Castle, basically controlling access to the dungeons. Even an entry fee would bring in solid profit. The protagonist answers a call from the blonde guy saying he already knows and he's logging into the game. When they meet up, Lee-ha notices his friend changed his gear, and the blonde notices the hero's got a new musket. Then Ki-jong gets straight to it. Does the protagonist want to join the guild or not? He apologizes for asking in a situation like this and explains everything. But fighting those sisters is not something Lee-ha wants to risk. Ki-jong says this time the leader wants it too, so he doesn't need to feel bad. But before Lee-ha can answer, someone comes running out of a bush, and when they go after them, the blonde sees the enemy guild symbol, Hua Hong. There was a spy already gathering info, and unfortunately they couldn't catch them. Lee-ha thinks it's ridiculous, but still says he needs time to think about joining. The blonde thinks the war is a chance to get famous, but Lee-ha says what matters most is the losses. Like if he helped, it'd be for his friend. In the end, Ki-jong says he'll let the leader know, and the hero just drops what he was about to say as they say goodbye, which was that he'd at least protect him from that damn berserker. In the trolls area, the main guy just grinds by killing them from far away. 2 shots each. The new musket is tricky because it's way too light, but he loses focus when someone suddenly shows up out of nowhere. At least it was the redhead with her sister, and she complimented the protagonist's new short weapon. The hero already knew they were going to show up because of that viral video against Rising Sun, so Hwajeong didn't waste any time and invited Leha to her guild. The protagonist isn't sure they're going to win, but the girl says they don't need some big strategy, because the one who takes down the lion is the parasite that gets born. She knows the rival guild is having trouble controlling their members, because a traitor from over there told her. Back to the blonde guy. He apologizes for being late, and the boss tells him not to take so long to get there next time. For now, he tells the kid to sit down, and he does, even though he doesn't get why everyone seems pissed off. Then the leader apologizes while attacking his friend with prison chains that block teleporting for 30 minutes. Kaijung still thought it was a joke, but the redhead showed a photo of him smiling next to that member of the enemy guild. The blonde yells that he was following the guy, but Sasuke doesn't buy that someone who got caught smiling was following anyone. Actually, that person wasn't in the photo, but that would be hard to prove. So the blonde says he'll answer any questions. Then Hyde says maybe the reason for all this is the protagonist. Kijong yells no, that the photo is fake, but everyone believes the kid was being helped by the sisters. He thinks it's a misunderstanding, but the redhead reminds him they're in the middle of a war that could put the guild in danger. So they play a video thinking their friend will change his mind once he sees it. In the Candle Castle incident, there was a Korean there, and it was basically common sense that some random musketeer wouldn't just pop off like that. The class was trash, and the whole 1 vs 500 thing was unbelievable. Even so, Tail says they should at least let their friend explain himself. He also doesn't think the protagonist is a spy, so they agree to prove he's innocent since nobody argues. So the two of them leave using a teleport spell. But if they couldn't prove it, Haein said they'd take responsibility for the damages. Back to the hero's conversation, Hwajeong notices something weird. The redhead tries to flirt and pitch the offer again. But Leha also notices something when Kijung and Tail show up. They appear right in the middle of the chaos, so the sisters scream, and the hero says he can explain. But even though he could, Hwajeong attacks first, so Tail uses his fire sword to block, shocking his buddy. Leha tells everyone to stop attacking and calm down, but once things pause, Tail leaves with Kijung and they teleport away, before the hero even gets a chance to talk. The hero regrets not saying he knew them, so when the redhead comes over, he asks where she got that information. Parasite meant there was a traitor, but she wouldn't say who, so the hero points his gun at her. He doesn't want this misunderstanding to happen, but Hwajeong couldn't care less about the drama, and since the protagonist keeps insisting he's the most important person, she says she doesn't even know. The person was completely covered up, and even if she was sure, it could have been a double agent. Plus, she wasn't trying to split the two of them up, so she gave them the option of both joining Hwajeong, where the hero would be the guild's sniper and her personal bodyguard. She offers 3,000 gold coins a year, or more with bonuses, which would let Leja afford the surgery in 4 years. It was a one-time chance to accept and sort things out with Kijung later, but that's not how the hero sees it, so he apologizes and refuses. Even though the blonde isn't his real brother, he's the one who pulled him out of depression and saved his life, so he'd rather fight her than betray the guy, and Hwajeong thinks that's pretty cool, and Hwajeong does too. It was all a test, but the offer wasn't, and she said Leja could still join later, so the two of them leave, and the hero's left thinking about what to do. And back at Buellshow HQ, the leader was forcing Kijung to take responsibility. At home, the protagonist tries calling, but gets no answer from either Kijung or Table because they blocked him. Meanwhile, at the blonde guy's place, he was feeling betrayed. Since he couldn't prove the hero's innocence, the leader forced him to sign a contract. If they lost the war, Kijung would go bankrupt because he'd have to pay 2.6 billion in damages. At Holly Grill, people were gossiping about who was going to win the war. But when the waitress showed up, Lita dropped the code word. Lita and Juez meet up again because he wants info. Along with what he already asked about Bible Cho, the hero also wants something on Igor, because he's sure Igor's going to show up in the war. A few days later, at the Sisters Guild, the general director gets called in. Jackjung explains that Hwajeong is only the leader on paper, because the redhead is the one actually running things, and the meeting to share intel starts. First up, in the first battle, the enemy pushed in with a numbers advantage and attacked full force. That day they lost in under an hour. The hideouts were supposed to be secret, but Bible Cho somehow knew exactly how many people to send. They hit 9 hideouts at the same time. So to make sense of that, the girl brought someone in. She brought the famous outsider alchemist Crowley, the Mad Commander. He came because he heard Bible Cho was going to call Faust, so he wanted to fight him. The problem for Hwajeong is she has to keep rejecting him over and over. Anyway, the guy throws a potion on the ground and summons a bunch of blood golems, and they charge the enemy and wipe them out. That battle happens in Tygonus, and even then, on both sides, Hwahong is still at a disadvantage, so they can't afford to lose again, and the meeting wraps up. From a distance, the protagonist thinks it's cool the sisters hired the alchemist, plus the yellow dragon. But he notices some people on the side wearing Hwahong-style camo cloaks. The problem is there's no guild symbol, and they could be the ones who are spying in the capital. At first they figured something out from the crest, but the redhead didn't know Lita, knew Kijong, so the hero used his markers to go after those nosy intruders. That night, in a trap at a hideout, there was a clash that went badly for the Hwahong Guild. They lost 4 people. Those losses had already been happening, and it had been a week since the Battle of Tygonus, and Baiulcho still hadn't even shown himself, but they were already exposed. Whenever they went in with 10 people, Baiulcho would hit them from behind, so the redhead tried to figure out when everything started going wrong. Back during the push, all 3 groups had done well, which made the leader happy. Even spending a ton, Wahong is worse off, and Baiulcho's gonna get everything back with the castle. Sasuke says he'll prep the strategies, so they say goodbye, and the redhead thanks him. Baiulcho had been leading the war, so people switched their bets. That same guild kept provoking them too, and they revealed they'd be at the Amoth Cliff. So a few days later at the spot, the 2 groups met up. Wahong has fewer people, but at least Peiwu brings 888 of the best soldiers, and the alchemist stays off to the side in a key position. On the redhead side, a mage is worried they'll miss the timing, but the issue is their plan is to play defense, and the orders Sasuke gets are to protect the master. So Hien yells that they need to take down the witches and get into the castle. Baiulcho's side advances with 600 men, but the way they start the war feels like a trap. Even so, Hien says this isn't chess, and calls her sister, who casts an ice spell called Arctic Tornado. The tornado starts wrecking everything, so the mage Enshin asks the master to help with the trap. He uses a storm barrier that stops the sister's magic from getting through, but even with 4 totems, Yenshin can barely hold it, so all the mages use that time to cast a spell together, and so their skills don't just slam into the barrier. Hien makes a wormhole for Wachong, so that magic sandwich goes straight into the girl's face, and the wind blows everyone away except Kaijong, who just stands there with this blank expression. From the way he keeps attacking with blood golems non-stop, he's obviously pissed, and the alchemist almost starts crying. Victory looked close until everyone turned and saw Pei Wu's reinforcements up on the mountain. Hien finally messes around a bit and says thanks, while the enemies are terrified. Then she tells their ally to surround everyone, and the soldiers start coming down the mountain. The founding members get nervous because all of a sudden they lost their numbers advantage. You couldn't even tell how many there were, so Hien mocks the enemy leader. Still, Hien fires back that she's not fit to own a castle. She also says she didn't block the exit, so Hien gets the hint right away. But it's too late for Pei Wu, who gets hit with a forced teleport. Just like that, the sister's biggest trump card is gone, leaving the redhead alone. Now the passage is closed, and nobody knows where the Chinese guy ended up. Even if it was nearby, it'd take time to get back, so Jachung is going to lead the Yellow Dragon, because the 88 members are still there. Baiulcho only had 400, and neither the sisters nor anyone else was expecting Igor to come sprinting in like a maniac. Anyone who knows the berserker is scared shitless, but he charges through swinging his sword and tearing through everyone, so Hien swallows hard and admits defeat. But one certain hero hiding in a bush nearby isn't having it. In the first few seconds, a bunch of people get taken out by the berserker, including the sisters. Baiulcho praises the master, because once they got in touch with Igor, they won. Even so, the MVP of the war is Sasuke, because he's the one who called him in and came up with the tactics. Now Hien just asks Igor to finish the job, but for some reason the berserker almost kills him. Sasuke gives him a quick scolding. None of it makes sense, but the whole power dynamic shifts. Whoever shows up with Igor throws their weight around, and Sasuke looks like he's right in the middle of this betrayal. So the guy pulls out a contract to transfer ownership of the castle. From the start, Sasuke never saw the redhead as the boss, and not suspecting him was his biggest mistake. Before killing the old leader, he reveals he's been skimming money from the guild and can pin it on the redhead. Then he tells him to sign the contract already. Turns out the parasites were the Japanese members of the Daiju Nana guild all along, so Sasuke immediately puts Heian under his control. Kajong jumps in and gets shut down on the spot. Then Heian Weichan recognizes the kid, tries to warn them it's a setup, and Sasuke controls her too. But the blonde connects the dots that the ninja is the one who caused the whole misunderstanding and gets pissed. Even so, he doesn't have proof, and it's true Heian tried to take advantage of Kajong. Honestly, Sasuke was the one who suggested it, but it didn't matter. Everyone got blinded by money, and the blonde mostly just wants to protect the guild. So Sasuke tells Igor to deal with the shield guy. The berserker laughs because he remembers the scared little kid from the last war, but Kajong wants this time to be different. Either way, Igor activates Bloodburst, and Taian runs in to save his friend. But before that, the berserker takes a shot right in the middle of his forehead, and just from the shape of the bullet, Kajong starts crying because he realizes Lihei came to help. Igor doesn't get what's happening. He thinks the sisters did something, so he goes to finish them off, but this time, he gets shot in the leg. Sasuke didn't warn him, and didn't even know there was a third enemy. Anyway, the berserker needs to heal with blood, so he starts mowing people down. He wasn't supposed to do that, so Taian steps up to confront his old teammate. Even though he's always neutral, the kid butts in because he trusts Kajong more than he trusts Igor. So the two of them start fighting all out, and anyone who still hasn't noticed the betrayal can't understand why. Igor, meanwhile, thinks he just needs to kill the guild leader to get the signature, and since the blonde is going to defend him, he starts laughing, hyped for round 2. Igor uses frenzy, and the kid starts counting, and the enemy thinks it's hilarious. But Kajong laughs even harder, because he wasn't counting for nothing. It takes Liha 25 seconds to reload. So when the time comes, the protagonist shoots Igor right in the shoulder, and using the holy spirit of the sword, Kajong slices his stomach open. Finally, the berserker drops to the ground, but the blonde's sword gets stuck in his muscles, so Igor triggers his final werewolf transformation. Hien yells for his friend to run, but Kajong needs to buy time, so Kajong freezes the beast's mouth shut. She was in bad shape, but she could still help the blonde a little. Even so, the redhead doesn't trust the two of them, but Kajong trusts his little brother. And just when it looks like it's going to work, a shot hits the wolf right in the head as it's about to attack his friend, and Liha levels up like crazy. Leveling up without being in a guild wasn't normal, but the hero thinks back to the situations that made him pull the trigger, and he's glad he waited for the right moment because he managed to take Igor down. Still, he can't celebrate until he shakes the Russian guild off his back, so Liha just takes off running and jumps off the cliff. Kajong and Huayin freak out, but luckily Huayin has enough mana left to use another dimensional spell and set the hero down safely on the ground. The Russians lose it when they see him and say they're going to get revenge, and Huayin wants to know who this kid is to make that much of a difference. The moment Igor died, he escaped by logging out, or something like that. Liha says he showed up by coincidence, and takes the chance to apologize for not saying earlier that he knew the sisters. He didn't want to trick his brother, but Kajong also feels bad because he just blocked him without giving him a chance. So they make up, and instead of the Buyulcho leader explaining everything, the hero takes charge, yelling for everyone to come closer. Turns out there was a fake guild the whole time. Daiju Nano was created by the Shinobagumi guild just to make money. The front guild master could be anyone, and that day it was Sasuke, who also made that fake screenshot of the blonde guy. After weakening Buyulcho and Huahong through the war, he called in the Tsar Guild, since they needed cash. Even so, Huahong asks why Le Hua is getting involved to stop the war. The moment he hears that, a Draconic Knight gets pissed, because they were about to win. But the redhead explains that Pei Wu is going to show up soon if he wants to keep going. Le Hua meanwhile thinks it's better to just put an end to this whole guild war. But now Huahan is the one who gets mad, because she tried to negotiate a bunch of times. The problem is, Huahan didn't even know that, since he sent Sasuke to the conferences in his place, and Sasuke kept lying saying there was no deal. Because of that, the redhead agrees to take responsibility and leave the guild. But before that happens, the hero jumps in saying he's got a pretty good proposal. He looked into it and both sides had a lot to deal with, so Huahan could keep the castle, but hire Buyulcho's allies instead of the Yellow Dragon. With the hero negotiating, the Draconic Knights Guild and the Sparkling Guild teamed up with Huahan. Huahan stepped down from the guild voluntarily and handed the position to Kijang. He knew being leader would be tough, but the blonde guy was the only person everyone trusted. So he tore up that contract, decided he'd pay the war expenses himself, and go after Sasuke. In the end, Huahan says the protagonist showed up at the perfect time. On top of praising him, she asks where he got his info, and even though Lita dodges the question, she already knew it was from an NPC. Huahan admits the hero is amazing, even if he did all of it just for his sister, but the protagonist says he did it for Huahan too, which leaves her totally embarrassed and not knowing where to look. Either way, the guild war ended, and Huahan came out on top. Only 2 players managed to record the scene. One of them wanted to give the hero a title, because he thought Cloud Mage sounded awful. That's why his friend who works in TV remembered a musical with a character called Arcane Sniper. A few days later, an Ailstock late is walking around nervous because ever since the war, people won't stop coming after him. So he was going to look into it. But first he checked the achievements he got from the fight. The coolest one was about Igor, who explained how he leveled up. The catch is, Leta loses if he dies to Igor, but he focuses on the 213 attribute points he has. So he raises dexterity to 1000, saves the rest, and takes Igor's necklace, which is heroic rank. It gives 100% affinity with dark elves and resistance against dark magic. Then Leta gets rid of the kobold boss necklace and gains the skill Forbidden Fury. Right then, Sasuke apologizes to Okawa, but she doesn't care. The problem is the guilds are working together now. Sasuke wanted to help, but the boss had already called Minith and Shizurasian, because enemy guilds didn't have to be from the same country. Somewhere else way creepier, a guy realizes this isn't the lab either. He actually runs into demonic monsters, but he doesn't want to stick around. So when hellhounds chase him, the guy answers with a shot that sends both dogs and their owner straight into a ditch. And since he didn't find what he wanted there, he decides to go check out this arcane sniper. Near Dale Castle, people are looking for a team partner, so the hero figures there's no way he won't make money there. Backing up a bit, since Liha said no, the redhead offered him vice leader authority and Pei Wu level pay, both because of his skills and because she wanted him close. Even so, the handsome guy preferred to spend some time helping Kijong, so Liha just suggested she give him a share of the castle so he'd stay nearby. But out of nowhere, she agreed to share 10% of the income. When the hero bumps into someone in the city, he apologizes, but just standing there makes the guy realize who he is. And when he yells, everyone else realizes too. There was the arcane sniper, now famous, so everybody rushed in trying to get a piece of him. Liha got seriously bothered, but luckily someone shouted for it to stop. That person was a guard who was also looking for the protagonist, because he needed him, so he teleports him to another place. The protagonist ends up in a meeting with Jia Chung that feels more like an interrogation, and the old man even admits it is. But as the questions keep coming, Liha's patience runs out. They needed this because, without even knowing it, he was now part of the Ramlong group. And even though to Liha, it wouldn't be a bad thing to take down either of the two, saying that out loud went over badly with the old man. And it's kind of bad for the main guy, because he ran so he wouldn't get roasted. Hwayan shows up with excuses, he ignores her, and she also asks if the kid only came to check out the sealed sewer dungeon. He brought ammo and potions and didn't want anyone getting in his way. But before that, Hwayan hands the hero some really expensive items and just says she's giving them to him. No explanation. Anyway, they make it to the sealed sewer dungeon. The redhead is still scared. The protagonist will try to clear the place alone at his current level. But Leha goes in, and at least Hwayan isn't worried, because she trusts him. Days later, the protagonist is still in the dungeon. Hwayan Shong says the kid's seriously determined. And since the redhead looks worried, the old man starts teasing her, until she loses it. Truth is, Hwayan knows the hero has the right stats because her sister found out. Anyway, they finish the donations for the cities of Armios and Rehedes, and her sister found 3 suspicious people in the area. 3 from the Tsar Guild, walking around Dale Castle, so Igor might be nearby. The redhead asks who that guild's leader is, and Shadish explains they're basically tied to the Russian army. And it's no secret Russia backs Igor because when Peiwu got involved, it turned into a huge mess. As for the other 2, one is the sleeping kid the hero knows, who might be looking for Leha, and the other person the blue-haired girl mentions is Luger. Yeah, that Luger, the war mercenary, a fighting pro who's obsessed with money. Shadishing's never seen him in person, but he's heard he's strong, and there are rumors his nickname is Draconic Soldier too. Because he didn't fight just anyone, he fought the one Draconic Knight, Alexander. In the dungeon, the hero picks something up from one of the many frog monsters he's killed, but then he notices another one playing dead, and shoots it again. He gained 26 levels in just a few days, pretty easily. He stopped sleeping because he's logged in 24/7, and now he's level 144. To have the dexterity he has now, he'd normally need to be level 180, and wouldn't be able to put points into anything else. On top of that, the skill Forbidden Fury he got trades 40% of his HP for 20% more damage, so putting points into health is basically a waste. Instead, Liwa keeps boosting strength and dexterity until he stops because he gets a message from Kid. Liwa answers, but again the kid doesn't explain anything properly, so the hero has to run over and figure out what's going on. On the south side of the castle, Liwa yells out but Kid tells him to shut up. Then he sends his location, and when the protagonist gets there, he freaks out because Kid shows up basically half dead. The hero tries to give him a potion, but the kid says he needs to go to the temple because he's been cursed. The wound looks like a black hole, which to the protagonist can only have been made by the piercer. The current piercer is Luger, and he's coming, so the hero forms a party with Kid, but there's no time, because Luger drops down from a portal in the sky, looking like he's not here to talk. Kid tells the hero to shoot immediately and not even think about negotiating, but the hero gets pissed because nobody explained anything earlier. Still, Luger stays sharp because he knows that to beat Kid, you have to be strong. From 250 meters away, the hero thinks he's got the shot, but suddenly he panics and dives. He felt like if he pulled the trigger, he'd die first. And unfortunately, Kid knows his buddy isn't on that level, so he gets up to hold Luger off as long as he can. And once again, the two clash. The piercer praises Kid's courage, but then fires, causing a massive explosion. Kid survives and tries to explain that the hero's title is just a coincidence, and Luger has no idea what's even happening. But he aims for the piercer's leg to try to help. Kid yells for him to shoot, and suddenly the hero disappears, so Luger confirms he's the arcane sniper. The problem is Luger aims lower than the protagonist does, so Luger yells for his friend not to move. Luckily, Kid listens and avoids getting hit. Luger saw this at the Officer Academy, but somehow Luger adapted a tank for Middle-earth. It didn't explode right away because it's a bar with a delayed fuse. So knowing that, the hero runs to Kid and activates the ring's protective barrier. They both make it out okay, but even the barrier cracks. Compared to that, the bronze golem's attack couldn't even crack it. Even though he's alive, Kid's vision is all blurry, so the hero is going to have to escape while carrying him. Leela sets him down and focuses on watching the enemy, who's aiming at him too. With the two of them there, the hero activates the soul link, making his teddy bear show up in monster form. Luger realizes it's not the arcane bullet, so he just shoots the thing. He knows the hero did it to block his view, but figures he's also hiding in the smoke. Problem is the protagonist fires anyway and hits his leg. Every time he shoots that big gun, he braces with his legs, so now he can't anymore. Leela takes the chance to get out of there with Kid. He managed to land a shot even with all that smoke, so Luger found it really interesting. At the temple in Dale Castle, the hero complains because now he's going to be stuck without sleep for a while, and regrets not trying to take Luger out. But he accepts that the priority was his life and Kid's, so in the end the guy thanks him with a solid handshake. Outside, they finally start catching up. Then Kid explains that Luger was looking for clues about who the arcane sniper is. He says it's a crazy coincidence, but there's some truth to it. He doesn't know if it's an achievement or a title, but whoever has it can shoot an arcane bullet. Looks like that achievement can be taken by killing someone else, so Luger came to try to take it from Lipa. Anyway, Kid asks the hero to keep following the legacy, but to be careful when he becomes a musketeer, because they can see each other on the map. Then switching topics, the hero thanks him because he got a clue from Luger, and switching again, he asks to see Kid's musket. Of course, only after apologizing a whole lot to Koma. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.